anymore.
Not anymore. No?
Very good. Good evening, everyone. I call this meeting of the Board of Trustees for June 2024 to order. The time is 7:05, and we'll start the meeting by standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation,
Under God.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Madam Clerk, are you there to call the roll? She is not, so I will call the roll.
Sorry, I'm here.
Okay,
I just had to unmute, that's all.
okay.
Are
Call
we
the
ready?
roll, please. Yes,
Mayor Citrin,
present.
Deputy Mayor Lindsay,
Present.
Trustee Brooke. We'll note for the record, he is absent. Trustee Shara
Present via Zoom.
and Trustee Shaw.
Present.
Thank you very much. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. The first order of business is a public hearing. This is a public hearing on a proposed fence law, Chapter 49. I just want to let everybody know that by agreement of the Board of Trustees, this public hearing will be continued to next month. No determination will be made by the board on the proposed law. If we will give the public the opportunity to return at the July 17th meeting for further comment, at which point the board will engage in public discussion and a vote will take place. But there will be no action taken by the board this evening, nor will there be any board discussion, because public comment, all of it, must precede any discussion by the Board of Trustees on the proposed law. So with that being said, as a formality, I'm going to begin by reading the public hearing notice that was published in the Times Herald Record on May 29th. Notice is hereby given that a public hearing will be held by the Village Board of the Village of Tuxedo Park, Orange County, New York, on June 26, 2024 at 7 p.m. or as soon thereafter as can be heard at the Village of Tuxedo Park, Village Hall, 80 Laurelard Road, Tuxedo Park, New York, 10987, to consider the adoption of a local law about fences. Said local law will be made available for review in the village clerk's office, 80 Laurelard Road, and may be examined after May 23rd, 2024 by any interested party from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday by order of the Village Board of the Village of Tuxedo Park, Elizabeth Dougherty, Village Clerk. The copies of the law are available next to the cookies if anyone has not had the opportunity to see them. There is also a copy of the law that was posted as part of the agenda attachments that is available right now if you'd like to read it online or print it out for yourself. So to start this public hearing, be it resolved that I make a motion to open the public hearing on introductory law number 2 of 2024, fences. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor to open the public hearing, please state aye.
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 4-0, Elizabeth, to open the public hearing. We'll start with anyone in the room who wishes to comment on this proposed law. We'll start with Mr. Lynch.
Good evening. Dear Trustees and Mayor Citrin, I'm writing to express my concern with language in the proposed fence law. Why is the Board of Trustees tasked with approval of aesthetic choices and construction materials? Typically, this would fall under the sole purview of the bar. Trustee approval of construction and aesthetics is then contradicted in section 49-5D, where this is rightfully assigned to the bar. And I've included that in my letter. A secondary fence shall be constructed only of black plastic mesh material of a type approved by the Board of Trustees and shall be erected on thin black metal stakes of a type approved by the Board of Trustees, or natural unpeeled cedar posts of a diameter 6 inches or less. In section D, it's then contradicts itself in stating that a primary fence shall be of construction, design, and material as determined by the Board of Architectural Review in its review of the same as now required by law. There's further contradiction assigning the building inspector the sole authority to, quote, approve without further review by any other village authority. This goes against the spirit of the law as written and against the existing bar process required by law. I am in favor of this change to streamline the process for applicants. However, the bar should still review materials, at least informally, to ensure they meet design guidelines. And I've included the section of law. And to wrap up, why was the bar not consulted in drafting legislation that directly impacts the design guidelines? There should be no attempt to circumvent the bar entirely when construction and aesthetics are under the purview of the bar as required by law. Whom does this benefit? It seems very suspect. I implore the Board of Trustees to please consider these issues before establishing a contradictory piece of legislation. Thank you for your time and your service to our community.
Thank you, Mr. Lynch. Next, David McFadden.
Hi, everybody. David McFadden, 20 Pepperidge Road. I'm glad, Mayor, that you addressed the issue of the notice in the paper. We all know, though, that no one reads that. So basically, my comments are the legal liability concerns. Why introduce a new burden of legal liability to the current and future Board of Trustees? That's a question I hope you'll consider. Transparency and public input. Please present any written advice or input received from the appointed board or boards that influenced your draft law. And I just got the answer to that question. Apparently, you haven't consulted any of our appointed boards.
The chair of the planning board is here, and just for the record, the chair of the planning board was instrumental in drafting the new law, so please continue.
Okay, well, thank you. Again, in terms of common sense, don't you think the bar should have been consulted as well as the BZA? Because there will be challenges to the law. And also, did you share any memos with the village attorney regarding the transfer of the fence approval authority from the appointed boards to the Board of Trustees? How did he opine?
With respect to any correspondence between the village attorney and the board, it's a legal opinion provided by the village attorney, and we are not going to put that into the public record.
Well, that's a nice way to hide behind the facts, but if you ask the attorney to present to the village to opine on his view, it certainly could be public.
At this point in time, any opinion rendered by the village attorney to assist the board in crafting a local law and making a determination as to whether to present that local law to the public is not a correspondence or an opinion that will be publicly disclosed. It's considered to be legal advice. It is available for the board members to consider and review, and is not disclosed to the public.
Did the board review any fence laws from like villages in the area?
With respect to that question, I cannot give you an answer at this point in time.
I advise that you do that, that the board consider doing that.
I appreciate that advice. Please
All right,
continue.
So, I could continue with additional comments, but I wanted to discuss the notification process for this public hearing. And I advise you to reschedule it until proper legal notification takes place, which apparently you might be doing. The hearing, as we speak, is not posted on the official notices page of the website, nor is the law. That is against legal policy. It's supposed to be there at least 7 days before the hearing is commenced. And then today on the website, there was the final version of it was posted today on the website, the agenda section of the website. That's clearly not within 7 days of the requirement by law. And then finally, this is something that was common in past administrations, but why rely on the paper of record and a notice, a legal notice in the paper to alert residents as to a public hearing and the draft of the bill? Why not send out an email to everyone with including the draft of the bill?
if you're posing that question to me, we make a determination with respect to how we're going to put the agenda forward. My recollection is, in all due respect, that you put out an agenda on the day of the meeting. I put out my agendas always on the Friday before the meeting, which gives people sufficient time to review the agenda, and if they have any questions, to talk to me about it. And in addition to the agenda, there are attachments, numerous attachments that everyone is able to review. Your administration was consistently putting out the agenda, if at all, within 24 hours of the meeting. And I do not believe that that is sufficient time. I believe that the Friday before is an appropriate time, and I will continue to do the same.
I appreciate that, but I'm not talking about the agenda. I'm talking about public notice, legal public notice of a public hearing and the draft local law that accompanies it, which has nothing to do with when the agenda goes out. It's, for example, not posted on the official notice page of the website. That is a failure in notice. And this post should be postponed, as I believe you're doing anyway.
Well, we were going to postpone it by agreement of the board from the last meeting, so it's a moot point.
Well, I hope that in the future you'll properly notice the public using the official notice page on the website, as well as emailing a copy of the draft law to the public before 7 days of the public hearing. Thank you very much.
Okay, anybody else in the room have public comment on this particular proposed local law? How about Zoom? We have a few folks on Zoom. Anybody on Zoom wish to participate in the public comment portion of this agenda item? Yes. I see two hands up. We'll start with Christopher Gow.
Hello, Christopher Gow, 182 Westlake Road. Have some suggestions. On 49-4, section D, where it says at the end, property line, roadway, or shoreline, I would probably recommend changing shoreline to water's edge. So that includes streams and rivers and brooks leading into water. The same with the section 100-18, where it says no fence should be located closer than 5 feet to any roadway, and I would add there water and water's edge as well. The other comment that I had was on section 49.5B about the secondary fence. Shall be constructed only of black plastic mesh of a type approved by the Board of Trustees, and shall be erected on thin black metal stakes of a type approved by the Board of Trustees. That makes sense because it remains invisible, which is what the aim is with these secondary fences or deer prevention fences. So the use of natural unpeeled cedar posts of a diameter of 6 inches or less, I think would be counterproductive, because that would be very, very visible, and they would stick out like a sore thumb, even though they're made of wood. So I would recommend removing that. And the other point was, I think that's it. Yeah, they're my points. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gow. Mr. Lindsay, you have your hand up.
Yeah, Mayor, I just have a quick question. Is the chapter on 49 on fences, that is the chapter that the one that's in the code right now is the chapter that's sunset, correct?
That is correct, sir.
Okay. I certainly will send in a formal, I have a couple suggestions in regard to what's put in here now. One concern that I have is the fences being the fences being temporary, all right, is how would they possibly be regulated?
That's a good point, Mr. Lindsay. Obviously, enforcement of the word temporary becomes an issue.
Right, I mean, the kind of the genesis of when this occurred, it was kind of when the deer were running wild and everyone was putting up deer fences to protect themselves from Lyme disease, and that's why there were a bunch of temporary fences put up. Now that the culling has occurred, I don't think we're under that critical of a situation. And, I'd hate to see just fences put up and, to be expected that they're going to be taken down within a year. It's just not going to happen. So I think that needs to be regulated in some way, and maybe we shouldn't have fences be temporary at all.
Well, I take your point, that the temporary certainly should be defined by a period of time, so that everybody appreciates what we're talking about when we use the word temporary. It's just standing alone. I'll concede. What does the word temporary mean? 3 months, 3 years?
Right. And the other question, just as an interpretation, when they refer to perimeter fence being greater than 50%, so I'm assuming that a 49% of the property line is not a perimeter fence and a 51% of the property line is.
Well, we're drawing the line we're drawing the red line at some point, and
Okay.
that point is 50%.
I mean, quite frankly, I thought the enclosing of 35% of the property really, to me, made more sense than this.
Well, we could debate the percentage of what is considered to be an enclosure of the property and what is considered to be a perimeter, and you can pick any number, I assume, and make the argument, assuming it's not 10%, that it is a perimeter fence. So that's certainly one point of view, but in terms of this particular law, we decided to make it a nice even 50%.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Anybody else? Ms. Hempel?
Thank you very much, Mayor. First of all, I agree with what Christopher is saying about the cedar, because cedar railings are used in horse country so that both horses and human can clearly see the paddocks, and they don't really disappear, even if they're close to vegetation. As an illustration, if you go down to the northern entrance of the racetrack preserve, you will see a cedar railing, and you can see that against a lot of trees, and the fence stands out very clearly. So I agree with Christopher. We should just really use black mesh and black metal. To Jake's point about the perimeter fence being defined as a boundary fence that extends for greater than 50% of the lot line, to me, that could be highly problematic because it really depends on where the property is. To give you an illustration, the club, I hate to put them in the spotlight, but it's a good illustration in my mind. The club, the main club's and the boat club's lot is a triangle. But under this definition, they can put a perimeter fence right from the boathouse all the way to the tennis house, and it would be legal under this definition of not greater than 50% of the boundary, because the other two sides of the triangle are more than 50%. So I personally, of course, I would love to see no perimeter fence, because after all, Lorillard and generations of architects have designed deliberately houses and estates to glorify an expansive view, a rustic landscape. And I don't think we should be, or rather I should say, we should be very mindful when we try to change a very important architectural tradition. And after all, we are very special. We're not Upper Saddle River. So I would love to see that clause of 50% or whatever percentage deleted and just say perimeter fence not permitted, because it really absolutely depends on the property. We can destroy Tuxedo Park and the main roads if the wrong or the right property is allowed a perimeter fencing under this proposed law. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hempel. Anybody else online wish to add their comments to the public hearing? Very good. All right, as I said, we're going to continue this public hearing. We've heard from various members of the public and various opinions. So I'm going to make a motion.
Comment, trustees?
Well, I made a mention of the fact that we're going to continue this public
But
hearing.
I'm not
We
gonna
should
be here
hear,
next month.
thank you
So
for
I
reminding
would-
me. Yes,
yeah.
yes, of course, trustee
So
Shaw.
I would like to, I have a question. Was it intentional or an accident to make the Board of Trustees be the deciding factor for the fence material on section 49.5?
Yeah, I'm going to turn that, I'm going to turn over to the planning board chair to answer that question. He was the drafter of this law and he has a full appreciation of what he put together for us.
Okay. Because I know I for sure, as a Board of Trustee, would not want to be involved in the bar decisions. And I don't think any future trustees want to be involved in that either. Leave it with the bar, not with the board. So.
You have the floor, Mr. Reichscott.
Thank you. Jay Rushcott, 121 Laurel Road, and Chairman of the Bar, Laurel Road, Planning Board.
I like shake it out.
Everything that isn't in a different color or cross, I mean, it is the text of the law as it was established originally. So the assigning of that duty to the Board of Trustees was in the original version of this from 2002 or whatever it was done.
Maybe it was a mistake back then.
I've been told otherwise.
Okay, it's part of the guidelines, part of the bar's purview since 2006.
So the bar certainly has purview for questions of material and aesthetics. Correct. It is my understanding that the intention of this rule, as originally put together, was to create a way to simplify and codify the establishment of temporary interior fences.
Mr. Reichscott, would you address your response to the trustee rather than to the audience?
Certainly.
I just
My
appreciate that.
So it was intended to codify putting together deer fences. And as I understand it, it was pretty much to establish a pre-approved fence. And the language says, if you build a fence that meets the rules, you don't have to talk to anybody, which, as we know, is not a great idea, which is where the idea of having the building official review it comes in. I don't know if that codification has to come from the Board of Trustees. This would be a question for council. But certainly, in establishing what the pre-approved fence materials and aesthetics are, I would expect that the Board of Trustees would consult with the bar on that before making their decision.
But I don't know why the Board of Trustees would be getting involved. We don't get involved in the building materials. It's part of the design guidelines. So, I mean, to me, this would be part of the design guidelines and not having the board go and decide, well, we don't like yellow brick, I just don't see why the Board of Trustees would be involved with it.
That is certainly a decision that the Board of Trustees can take. This was a piece, like I said, that comes out of the original text of this law. And I didn't see a reason to change it. But all I did was draft the law so the Board of Trustees would have something to start with. I'm a firm believer that somebody has to write the first draft. Everybody else can go, you idiot, that's completely wrong. We want to do it.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Any other questions before I sit down? Yeah.
We're not, this meeting is not conducted back and forth between the.
We didn't close the public comment section.
No, yeah, that's correct, but you're putting a question, I assume, to the planning board chair, and we're not going to go back and forth between the audience and the planning board chair. You're free to comment and speak directly to the board and raise your questions to the board, and you have the opportunity to do that, and you will have another opportunity on July 17th. But we're not going to have a back and forth between the members of the public.
My wife yielded her time to me, so I.
You know, this is not the United States Senate. Your wife is not yielding your
No,
time.
we've done
That's
that
what we
before.
used to do in the beginning of the
Yeah,
meetings.
you've done that before.
No, we,
Yes, you have.
Yes, you did.
excuse me?
You did. You would let people yield their 3 minutes.
As a courtesy to you, when you appeared for the first time at the first post-election meeting, I gave the opportunity to speak for a fully 6 minutes because you told us you had to leave and couldn't stay for the entire meeting. I did that as a courtesy. We do not yield time here. If your wife, Mrs. McFadden, wishes to speak, she's free to stand up now and speak and say her piece. But there's no yielding of time. This is not the United States Senate or the House of Representatives. I'm sorry. And you're welcome to come back before the board takes any action at all and speak again on July 17th, or send somebody in your place instead. Is there anybody else who wishes? Yes. That would be Sally Sani, I assume. Ms. Sani, if that's you, please feel free to speak publicly.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am, we can hear
Yes,
you.
I just wanted to say that those of us who are watching on Zoom, maybe others can, but I cannot hear the people who are speaking at the podium. I have no idea what they were saying. And maybe the mic isn't working. I don't know. I can hear other people who speak from Zoom. And those of you who are sitting in the front, but when someone goes to the podium, it's just not audible. And I think maybe something should be done to correct that. But now it's over, but I was hoping that I could hear some of the speakers and I could not.
Sally, I think part of the problem was that, as the mayor indicated, there was a bit of a conversation between Jay and the audience, and but I agree with you.
No, it was the others also.
I understand when Ryan was up there and Jay was up there. I don't know if it's it's definitely not as clear. So if people could either speak up or we need to fix the mic, one of the two.
And also Mac, I could not hear anyone. I could hear bits.
Right.
But it really was not clear, and I think there's something wrong with the system. So I just wanted to let you know. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Sani. We will attempt to address this before the next meeting so that everybody can hear what everyone says, whether they're on Zoom or in the room. And if necessary, we will supplement this with a different or upgraded system, because I think that's very important. You all took the time to join this meeting, and you should be able to hear everything that's said in public with respect to these issues, whether it's this one or the forthcoming issues for the rest of the agenda. So I apologize on behalf of the village for that. Is there anyone else that has any comments on the proposed public law? Hearing none, I move now, be it resolved, to adjourn the public hearing on introductory law number 2 of 2024 to the next regular Board of Trustees meeting, which is July 17th at 7 p.m. Do I have a second?
A second.
Second by the Deputy Mayor. All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. The meeting is adjourned. Again, everyone is welcome to attend and reiterate what they said again, or any new position statements they want to make on July 17th. And it's only after public comment is complete that the board will discuss it publicly and either move forward or take whatever action the board deems appropriate. Yes.
So you're continuing the public hearing?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes.
I thought I just heard you close the public.
No. It's adjourned, continued until July 17th for the record. Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Now we're going to move to the regular agenda. All right, so according to what I have in front of me, we have to have another call to order and a roll call for the regular agenda, Elizabeth.
I was just looking at that. No, I don't think we
Oh,
can
okay.
have to do that. Sorry about that.
That's okay, thank you. Then we'll begin with my comments. We had an election on June 18th. I thought it was very, very successful, handled very well by the Board of Elections. There were a number of people that had issues obtaining absentee ballots. I'm not, that system was designed by the New York State Board of Elections and by the county board. And what I can say with respect to our next election a year from now is, in light of the fact that we had a handful of complaints about people that couldn't go online and get their absentee ballots, that I will endeavor to publish an email to everyone, simple instructions about how you get your absentee ballot for the next June election, rather than simply say, go to the Board of Elections website and follow their instructions, because we don't want anyone to miss the opportunity to cast their ballot. It's the most important thing you do as citizens in this village, aside from paying your taxes. And I want to straighten that out so that everybody has the opportunity to vote. Now, with respect to the election, I just want to remind everyone that, unlike our previous elections, having assigned this duty to the Board of Elections, this was at no cost to the village. So there was a savings of about $2,000 that we didn't have to expend on poll workers and whatever else. So that's a good thing. It went rather smoothly. It was an uncontested election. And I want to thank the residents for coming out to vote. Despite the fact that there were only 2 candidates on the ballot for the 2 seats, and I congratulate the deputy mayor for being elected, and I congratulate the trustee-elect Jedediah Turner, who will be joining us next month, we had a turnout approaching about 140 people. And the reason I think it's wonderful that people took the time to vote is because I compare it to the last uncontested election, which was in 2022. And while the high vote getter for this election got 140, in the 2022 election, the high vote getter got votes somewhere in the mid-40s. So we had 3 times the turnout for essentially an uncontested election. So people showed their interest, they came to the polls, they took their time, and I think that's a wonderful thing. And I congratulate everybody and thank everybody who came to vote. We will be welcoming our new trustees, our new trustee on July 1st, and we will have a reorganization meeting probably on July 8th, but that'll be subject to a vote later on. Now, on another subject, I learned recently that at the Weewa Beach, we have a floating dock, and that floating dock has a ladder access. That ladder was decrepit. Many of the rungs were missing, and it really posed a danger to anyone who wanted to climb up onto the floating dock, whether it was a child or an adult, because they simply couldn't get themselves up with a single step. And I want to thank Joanne Karbowska, who graciously and generously gave $1,500 to purchase a metal stair that is now affixed to the dam and will probably be in use for many, many years to come. It was an extraordinary gift, and on behalf of the village, I want to thank her for her generosity. And on behalf of all the swimmers, I want to thank her for her generosity. We will accept that donation by formal resolution later on tonight. But she essentially came to the rescue because we were told that, at least in our initial determination to replace the ladder that was there, that it was back ordered until August. And that was simply unacceptable. And again, Ms. Karbowska, thank you so much for your donation. We greatly appreciate it. Now, on another subject, which the chief will speak more directly about, there were several incidents in the last month that involved both the front gate as well as a serious motor vehicle accident. And it has come to my attention, based upon conversations I had with residents, that there is great concern, at least there is concern about the system that is presently utilized at the front gate to admit non-residents. And in response to that, I have asked the incoming trustee, Jedediah Turner, to form an ad hoc committee together with 2 or 3 residents to meet with the police chief to discuss ways to improve front gate security. Now, the 2 incidents, as the chief will explain, were unrelated. The woman who was involved in the motor vehicle accident, who was driving the car, was in the village as an employee of a resident. So there was no issue of her entering the village unlawfully. However, the more recent incident, which took place last Friday, involved a non-resident coming to the gate and misrepresenting the reason why they were entering the village, and ultimately ended up trespassing on the property of one of our residents on Pine Hill. The police were
With a
summoned.
gate. No, no less.
I'm sorry?
With a gate.
Yes,
On
yeah,
his
yeah,
property.
Pine Hill.
Yeah.
And the police were summoned. They handled the situation. But it raises a question of whether the system we use now, which I'm not going to broadcast to the world, that allows non-residents to enter, is really sufficient. So I'm going to ask Trustee-elect Turner and the police chief and the other resident members of the committee to come up with suggestions that would improve front gate security. And hopefully by the end of the summer at the latest, we'll have recommendations that the Board of Trustees can consider, which may change the way people, non-residents primarily, enter the village. Last, Trustee Shaw has served this village admirably on 2 separate occasions. I believe you served earlier in the 2000s.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And she recently served 4 years from 2020 to 24. Trustee Shaw chose not to run for re-election, but during the course of her last 4 years, I can certainly attest, based upon my interactions with her since I became your mayor, she's incredibly hardworking. She served as budget director for 2 years, and even in the most recent budget, she worked very closely with the deputy mayor. She has a full and complete understanding of the village finances. And on behalf of the village, I want to thank you for all the hard work that you put into this 2 terms that you served as trustee. And on behalf of the village, I'd like to present you with this certificate of appreciation. It reads, Certificate of Appreciation in grateful recognition of her service and support. I hereby present Anna Tinka Shaw with this certificate of appreciation for her work as trustee and deputy mayor of the village of Tuxedo Park on this 26th day of June, 2024. So I hand it to you. Thank you very much. And at this point in time, I will give the floor to Trustee Shaw for any remarks you wish to make about your service to the village over the last 4 years.
Oh, it's been very gratifying. And I always say, the more time you put into it, the more you get out of it. And I certainly have gotten a lot out of it, getting to know how the village runs and working closely with John and Elizabeth and Jeff and the prior police chief. I haven't worked that closely with you, but it's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much, Trustee Shaw. Okay, so now we have the regular public comment session. So everybody has a chance, if they like, to get back up to the mic, get as close to the mic as you can, and so that the people on Zoom can hear. And we'll start with Professor Hayes.
I'm sorry, Mayor, are you going to give the other trustees an opportunity to make comments?
Yes. Just give me a minute. Trustee Scherer, the agenda has the trustee comments after the public comment.
Perfect. I just want to make sure I have my opportunity. Thank you.
No, I was giving Trustee Shaw the opportunity to speak about her service. Since I just presented her with a certificate, I thought the timing was appropriate.
Great.
Okay, all right.
I don't mean to usurp his position.
No, that's not, the public comment comes before trustee comments.
Okay.
So feel free to proceed,
2 things,
Professor.
and I'll be very quick. First of all, the board has recently received a report from the lake manager
for the work that was done in the summer of 2023. This is the latest that has ever come. And it is much too late for the board. The report should come to you prior to your doing the budget. So it should come to you no later than the middle of February. And I think that you really need to emphasize that with the lake manager. He, when the prior board hired the lake manager at the recommendation of the lake committee, we had recommended someone that came from a fairly small firm because we thought we'd have more influence. He is now left and is now with a large firm. There are other large firms such as Princeton Hydro and others that might be just as good or better. So I think that firm better find a way to get the reports to you in a timely manner so you can use them. I haven't had a chance to study that report in detail because it's just come in, but I did notice that it looks as if the anoxic layer that is moving up by the end of last summer was very close to the water intake pipe. And if that continues to come up, it will be a problem. So that's all. And then I have one other thing to say, whether you may or may not want to hear it, but in any case, I want to say a word about gypsy moths. I'm asked a lot of questions about gypsy moths and people don't seem to understand what's happening with them. I can just tell you that they're about through eating the trees now. In fact, you will see brown and white moths flying around, and those are the male and female of the gypsy moth. They go into a cocoon, then they go through their metamorphosis and come out as a flying moth. So they'll be ready to lay their eggs and so forth. This infestation is fairly local. You go down to Mawa and look at the hills, they're fine. You go up to Florida and look at the hill, they're fine. You go to the Hudson, they're fine. So we are a local infestation, but quite a severe one. But this has happened before and much more severe. In the early 1980s or maybe the latest 70s, there were 2 years in a row when at this time of year, if you drove through here, it would look like February. There wasn't a leaf on any trees. Now they're mainly working on oaks, but they took everything. And it went for 2 years. 2 years they defoliated everything. And then the gypsy moths went away. What happened is there may be a whole number of things that happen. There are predators. Sometimes the trees put out toxins, so they're and fight back. So there are a number of things that happen, but generally speaking, probably a year or two and it will be over. But next year could well be worse than this. And of course, the weather is warmer, which may stress the trees. So you can't guarantee the trees will all live. But I think if past experience is a guide, the trees will probably live.
Is there any remedy that you're aware of?
Well, you can spray, of course, but it's very expensive to do that. And you can't do the whole forest. Back in the 80s, the state thought of spraying the whole forest, but it was so expensive they decided not to. And it turned out it wasn't necessary.
Trustee
And-
Sharon, you had a
Yeah,
comment?
Jim, a question for you. Like, what do you have a sense for what causes the infestation?
No, I mean, it's some kind of natural cycle they go through. I think, when you have the infestation, the predators build up and
Yep.
over a period of time, they're still around and the gypsy moths are kept in. I really, actually, I'm just talking. I don't know the answer.
Yeah.
Sounded good, though.
No, I didn't say.
Thank you, Professor. Any other, Mr. McFadden? No, we do the room first.
Right.
All right, I'll do the same Jim did.
Sure.
David McFadden, 28 Pepperidge Road.
Before you continue,
Sure.
Mayor, is everybody able to hear him or?
Yes.
Professor?
Let's ask Sally though, if
Sally,
she's still on.
if she's still on, I don't, Sally's still on, yeah. Can you
Yeah,
hear,
she is.
can you hear everything, Ms. Sani?
Well, yes, he hasn't said anything.
But did you hear, did you hear Jim?
I could, it was difficult, but I could hear
Right.
Jim.
All right, so first, who is in charge of keeping up the village website?
The village website was maintained by me and Elizabeth, but we have a proposal on the agenda tonight to turn it over to Fiona Doherty, her daughter, who did a wonderful job with the professional fee billing accounting.
Excellent. Will she be doing the day-to-day work or design changes?
I believe she'll be doing both. We'll hire her for a limited period of time to work on upgrading the website.
Okay, so my comments then are fairly moot, but right now it's outdated and there's incorrect information on it. And it doesn't meet the standards of the state law, or the village's own resolutions that have been passed in prior boards to keep it up to certain speed. For example, there's nothing posted on official notices. And I referred to that earlier. The planning board, bar, and BZA don't have minutes. That's against the law. And so there's a lot of very serious things that should be dealt with, and I hope that Fiona is given that information. It is a taxpayer-funded asset, and not maintaining it to standards is unfair to the taxpayers. And it does reflect poor communication from our officials, and it's unfortunately been that way for a full year. So I'm very pleased that you're going to try and effectively run the website, and there are laws that need to be followed. I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Secondly, it's about the appointed boards. I noticed on the agenda this evening, you plan to vote on appointing a planning board member. I don't recall ever receiving anything from the mayor or any of the boards that there's an opening. So why are you appointing someone tonight when other people that may want to apply haven't even been notified? And as you know, I did this frequently when I was mayor. I would always make a public announcement that there were positions available. There's no rush. It's the planning board. They rarely meet. So I'm suggesting that you table the vote, go out to the public and ask if there's any other applicants, gather those applicants, do your interviewing, develop your short list, and then if you come back to this young lady, terrific. But I think it's only fair, it's only transparent, obviously. This should not be done in the dark. This should be a transparent process. So that's my recommendation there. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, it's Joanne Hanson. I just joined. I was the former chair of the planning board. So I apologize. I've just dropped into this conversation, but I don't know if you'd like to hear my perspective on this.
Well, I think the rule is that we have to take we take comment from the public in the room first. So as soon as we're done with that, I'll turn to you, Ms. Hanson. You don't, okay. Mr. Lynch is waving his, yes, Ms. McFadden, please feel free to approach and make your comments.
Okay. Robin McFadden, 28 Pepperidge Road. First of all, thank you to whoever made those delicious cookies. I don't know who it was.
That would be my wife.
Oh, thank you, Sheila. Okay, so one of my issues is I understand that you opened up the membership to the WeWa to more people in the town. And I just am perplexed as to how that would be to the betterment of the WeWa or our community. I mean, it's bad enough that the members of the WeWa from the town speed up and down Laurel Road all weekend long. I mean, I've heard this from residents who live there. They don't obey our traffic laws. They don't obey our speed limits. So I'm not sure who this is for the benefit of. And I understand also that you're talking about lowering the speed limits to 25, which is all well and good, except that the 30-mile-an-hour speed limits aren't even being enforced. Okay, so that's one problem. Then another issue, which you addressed to a point, is the security and safety. Opening up the WeWa to more members from the town, more guest passes, more people from outside coming in to the park, I don't think is for the betterment of our security either. And one thing that was not mentioned, besides the hit and run and the breach of the gate when the person went up the driveway, then there was also the squatter that was camping out in that corner house on Pine Hill and Ridge Road, which is actually right near our house, Luckily, I have two giant dogs just in case. But, you know, speaking of dogs, I'm not really sure why the leash laws and unattended dogs are even in discussion when you have crimes being committed within our own gates. This has all happened in 1 year. And I don't remember any time in the park in the past 5, 6, 7 years when we had so many crimes in 1 year. So that's a big issue. People come to the park for the security and safety. When all that's being breached, that's a problem. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments.
Evening again. Ryan Lynch, 217 Westlake Road. I'm writing to express my agreement with the mayor's proposal that the speed limit be reduced to 25 miles per hour. Sorry. It has come to my attention that the yellow speed limit signs are more suggestion than requirement. Although most roads in the park are not conducive to excess speed and common sense prevails, there are certain roads, such as the causeway, that need to be addressed to better protect the pedestrians enjoying all the beauty our community has to offer. I find the main offender to be Amazon vans and non-residents in a hurry. As a vintage automobile enthusiast, I find the roads of Tuxedo Park perfectly enjoyable at 25 miles an hour. Tax dollars do not need to be spent on any sort of survey. We need to look no further than existing signage to know problem areas and follow the data. NYC's Vision Zero has had remarkable success increasing pedestrian safety. Per their website, a driver at 40 miles per hour needs 300 feet to see, react, and brake when something unexpected happens. Twice as far as a driver at 25 miles per hour, who only needs 150 feet. Not only does speeding make it more difficult to avoid a crash, but it also worsens the injury when a crash happens. Even a small difference in vehicle speed can make a big impact in terms of safety. A pedestrian who is struck by a vehicle traveling at 30 miles per hour is twice as likely to be killed as a pedestrian struck at a vehicle traveling 25 miles an hour. For this reason alone, we should reduce the speed limit to 25 miles per hour to protect our many pedestrians. A universal limit of 25 is more appropriate than costly studies that will state the obvious. A significant number of residents I have spoken with support this change. I implore the Board of Trustees and the Mayor to please consider adopting this new law. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Let me just make one comment, Mr. Lynch. The statute that authorizes the village to reduce its speed limit to 25 miles an hour mandates an engineering study. And I've been trying to get a relatively inexpensive study. And as soon as I'm able to get an engineer who will do it for $5,000 or $6,000, if that, I will make the proposal. Once we have the study that says it's great, you can reduce your speed limit, I will make the proposal to the board and we'll move on that. But thank you for your opinion.
I think 5,000 or 6,000 is reasonable.
Yeah. The numbers before 10 or 18 were excessive, and that's why we didn't proceed with those. But thank you for your comments on that point.
And on gate security too, very much in favor of improving that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else in the room? Okay, Joanne, Ms. Hanson.
If I may say, Mayor, Christopher Gao has had his hand raised for a while.
I understand. I'm picking on Joanne because she has something to say related to prior comments, and I told her she could speak.
Thank you for Christopher for letting me. As I say, I just tuned in to former Mayor McFadden's comments about the planning board and approving this evening's recommendation for a new member. And I would just point out that when David was mayor in September of 23, there was an effort put out reaching out to generally to the public to ask if anyone was interested. A number of different candidates were interviewed. One of those ultimately joined the planning board, Tom Birmingham. So I would say that it is not the case that efforts have not been made in the relatively recent past to reach out and inquire about who might be interested in serving on the planning board. I would also say it's not the case that the planning board is inactive. I think they have a potential subdivision that is pending. And this applicant, I believe, is an attorney. has that background, which is the planning board does not currently have. And so I would just indicate and make people aware that there have been, involving David, efforts to reach out more broadly to attract folks to the planning board. And this particular recommendation, I think, has a skill set that, as an attorney, is quite valuable. So.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hanson. Mr. Gao, you're next.
Yes, just wanted to follow up on Jim's comments about the caterpillar infestation. Since the last infestation, the caterpillar has been renamed. It's the spongy moth. So if you read about the spongy moth, it's just a new name for the gypsy moth, which we were more familiar with. We're addressing what you can do to prevent it in the next Tree Advisory Board newsletter, which we have a wonderful new format thanks to Pam Breeman, who's done a marvelous job in collating all the information that we email out to most residents. But a lot of people are saying they're not getting it. We're sending it out to most residents with their emails. So check your spam folder in case. It's tptreeboard@gmail.com is where the email is coming from. And so, yeah, it's important information for what we can do to readdress this decimation of our infrastructure of trees after the emerald ash borer took away 10%. And then the storm that came through, and hundreds of heritage old growth trees were demolished. So we have to, a lot of rebuilding of our infrastructure of trees and replanting is necessary, but it'll be all addressed in the upcoming newsletter. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Pop?
Yes, hi, thank you very much. There are two things I'd like to speak about, and both of them have been addressed already, but I just really want to reinforce the critical nature of dealing with both of these things immediately. The first is the security at the front gate. Anybody can give a name and come in, and there's no scrutiny of the truth of where the person is going. And I know that sometimes traffic can build up at the gate, but I think it's more important to really get to the truth of why this person is coming in and where they're going. And I think we have to have a much more defensive system in place to keep our village as safe as we would like it to be. And along the same lines about security, I think that we are in the midst right now of the high season of the Weewa. That place is just very alive during the summer months. So 1 month is passed already. We have 2 more months there. I understand that Weewa members are allowed to have guests. I don't agree with that policy. I think that the Weewa members should be asked to provide a photo ID every time they come, and that if they have a guest has to be in their car with them. We should not allow other unauthorized people to be coming into the park. I understand that the perpetrator of this recent crime, while some kind of employee of someone in the park, also was in the park to go to the Weewa when this person does not live in the hamlet of Tuxedo and should not be granted any privileges at all. So I just urge a real rewriting of the laws of the Weewa Beach Club.
Thank you, Ms. Pop. Anyone else online wish to make any public comment at this point in time? Again, you can always make them at the end of the meeting. There'll be a separate section. Okay.
Yeah, Mayor, I just wanted to, if I may, quickly address Brian's point. Very quickly. We do have in place currently a law that required guests at the Weewa to come only.
Mayor,
Go to a mic.
we can't hear online.
Okay, well,
Why don't you
listen,
ask Matt
listen,
to break?
you know, David is speaking from the back of the room, so you can't hear him.
I'm happy to come up.
Why don't you come up and please make it quick?
Sure, I will, I appreciate it.
Okay.
I'm not trying to hog, but I just wanted to refer to Bryna's point. Last year, Bryna, the rule was that any guest had to ride in the car of the member and had to show a ID. If there was an exception where a car showed up and wasn't with the member, the police had to come down and escort that person up. Thank you.
Thank you, David. All right, we're gonna move on then to the trustee comments, and I'll start with the deputy mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I just want to say how much I enjoyed working with you, Tinka. And you really helped me understand the whole budget process. You were such a great help and very patient and hardworking, and it really was a pleasure to have
Ditto,
a
I agree.
short time with
Yeah,
you.
me too. It was a pleasure working with you on that.
Thanks. That's it. I have reports further
Okay,
down the
great.
line.
Trustee Scherer?
This is probably not the night for a lengthy statement, but it needs to happen tonight. I'd also like to just, Tinka, thank you for your service. The mayor and deputy mayor are exactly right. You are an extremely hard worker, rolled up your sleeves, really dug into the budget. I can see Elizabeth nodding. Really appreciate your service, and I think people sometimes forget that we're all volunteers. So thanks for everything you've done over the last few years. I'll apologize in advance. I've got a couple of pages that I want to read, but I think it's important. And I'll be distributing this statement to TP FYI, because the person who it's directed at is unfortunately not on this phone. At the last regularly scheduled village board meeting, I indicated that I'd received some letters from Orange County Board of Elections challenging my voter registration, as well as the voter registrations of my wife, Rowena, and my son, Justin. This was clearly a personal attack designed to intimidate me and presumably discourage me from continuing to serve as a public officer. At that meeting, I stated my intent to figure out who had challenged my registration and the reason for that challenge. I plan to use my time today to update the community on my findings and make a plea to both the perpetrator and the community to put an end to the divisive and economically costly behavior that has plagued our community over the last few years. After speaking with the Orange County Election Commissioner, I submitted a request to the county under the Freedom of Information Law, also known as FOIL. Unfortunately, that's a term that we all know too well in this village. The information that I received was both surprising and not surprising at the same time. The piece that was not surprising was that it was Claudio Guazzoni, the self-proclaimed public advocate who had submitted the challenge to my registration. The piece that was surprising was that he had hired a private investigator to investigate close to 60 people in our small community, many of whom are longtime and well-respected residents of the village. There were several troubling elements of this investigation, separate from the fact that Guazzoni hired a private investigator to delve into the private lives of his neighbors. First, the investigation was called Project Eradicated, as if the goal was to eradicate an insect, maybe the spongy moths, or some subhuman infestation. Second, the investigator accessed sensitive private information by using, and I quote from the investigator's letter, quote, open quotes, database platforms that are used by law enforcement, which provide real-time identification and location of people, assets, and their interrelationships, close quotes. Third, the investigation was clearly timed to interfere with our most recent village election, and targeted individuals Guazzoni viewed as being supporters of the former mayor, David McFadden. If you'd like to see the letter and the report from the investigator, please go to the editorials page of tpfyi.com and click on Letters to the Editor link for a submission by Sean Madden. As Sean Madden correctly points out in his letter, many of the voters singled out by Guazzoni are residents that have more than one home, and his challenges to their registration are baseless. New York law is clear that voters with multiple residents may choose one of them for election purposes, and it does not need to be their primary residence. Guazzoni himself has multiple residences. I'm certain he understands the law and knew prior to the investigation that the vast majority of his targets were valid voters. Unfortunately, this latest project by Guazzoni is just one of many divisive, destructive, and economically costly projects that he has embarked on in recent years. In all, I estimate that Guazzoni's actions have cost our community at least $500,000 or almost $2,000 per household. So let me repeat that. I estimate that Guazzoni's actions have cost our community at least $500,000. These actions have done nothing to improve the community, and in fact, just the opposite has been the case. This money that our community sorely needs for investment in our aging infrastructure, among other things. For those of you that are new to the community or do not closely follow village politics, I'd like to highlight some of Guazzoni's more destructive actions and their costs. The most recent attacks by Guazzoni required the county to expend significant resources, as his voter registration challenges required the county to investigate Guazzoni's claims by dispatching deputies from the county sheriff's office to the village to interview individuals targeted by Guazzoni. Some of them are on the call tonight. As you can imagine, for the individuals that had undercover agents showing up at their door, at their homes unannounced, this was an uncomfortable and alarming experience. Going back to last year's mayoral election, many of you are aware of Guazzoni's frivolous lawsuit challenging the votes of individuals he viewed as supporters of David McFadden. In addition to unnecessarily delaying the ultimate result and dividing our community, Guazzoni costs the village taxpayers approximately $275,000. All of us taxpayers paid for Guazzoni's spitefulness towards the former mayor. Finally, when Guazzoni was an elected village trustee, he flouted his obligations as a public official under New York's FOIL law, ultimately costing village taxpayers over $150,000 in legal fees and settlement costs. As a result, the Village Board of Trustees, at a public meeting on December 21st, 2022, unanimously adopted a resolution of censure against Guazzoni, rebuking him for, quote, not providing the level of cooperation and candor required of him as a village official under New York law. Consequently, village taxpayers incurred significant costs in this matter, end quote. Unfortunately, the list of destructive actions that I've just summarized is not exhaustive. As a mayor, our current mayor, Mark Citron, has correctly highlighted in his most recent letter to the community, Guazzoni's behavior has only led to, and I quote, outrage and further divides the community, end quote. As I've repeatedly stated, the current mayor has taken significant steps to heal the wounds in our community, and I give him credit for facilitating the uncontested election that we just conducted. The two candidates, Michelle Lindsay and Jedediah Turner, are two well-respected and uncontroversial individuals who required persuasion by the mayor and others to volunteer their time. With the toxic environment Guazzoni has created, is anyone surprised by the hesitation of these individuals or by the individuals of others being asked to volunteer for open positions on the bar, the BZA, and the planning board? So here's my direct request to you, Claudio Guazzoni. Stop the investigations of your neighbors. Stop the frivolous attacks against unpaid elected officials. Stop the litigation and threats of litigation. None of this is normal behavior, and none of it is necessary. If you have legitimate concerns or areas where the village can improve, bring them up like every other constituent. Show up at our monthly meeting and let your voice be heard. Litigation and threats of litigation should be a last resort. For people that associate with Claudio or consider him a friend, please do the community a favor and encourage him to find more productive ways to spend his time. Thank you.
Thank you, trustee Scherer. I just want to note two things that I forgot to mention in my comments, scheduling essentially. This is the last week for residents to pay their taxes. I think Monday is the last day, John. So for those of you that haven't gotten around to it yet, to avoid any penalty, please submit your taxes to Village Hall by Monday, July 1st. And the other item, just for public consumption, tomorrow night at 6 p.m. is the Tuxedo Union Free School District High School graduation at the George F. Baker High School if anybody wishes to attend. And we'll move on from that point. Thank you. We next turn to reports. The court report for March is attached to the agenda. So we turn now to our police chief, Alan Faust. Good evening, Chief. Please feel free to come forward like everybody else so all the people on Zoom can hear what you have to say.
Okay, good evening. For the month of May, the police department had 815 blotters, 2 criminal cases. We didn't have any arrests. We did have 4 property damage auto accidents, issued 6 tickets, 11 warnings, fire alarm, a regular alarm, 3 medical calls. Assisted the town of Tuxedo Police Department a few times, and they did patrol almost 2,900 miles. And the amount of people going through the gate were estimated at 896 daily, which is amazing. But the other stuff too, I wanted to talk about the incident that did happen on June 7th. I'm going to give a little synopsis of that. So on the 7th of June at approximately 3:15 p.m., the village and town police were notified by 911 of a hit and run motor vehicle accident in the area of 225 East Lake Road. Upon arrival, police quickly realized the severity of the injuries to the victim, a 24-year-old female who was going for a jog with her friend. The victim was quickly given medical attention and taken to Good Samaritan Hospital by the Tuxedo Ambulance Corps, where she was treated for a serious head injury and other injuries to numerous parts of her body. Through the witness description of the vehicle, police were able to identify the vehicle exiting the back gate through our video surveillance and license plate recognition system. The town police quickly responded to the registered owner's residence, which was located on Iris Lane in the town of Tuxedo, where they were able to identify the vehicle and ascertain the driver. Shortly later, when the vehicle was being impounded, the driver of the vehicle returned home and was detained by the town of Tuxedo Police Department and brought back to Tuxedo Park Police Department for processing. The defendant, Ashley Klingberg, a 31-year-old female residing in the town of Tuxedo, was initially charged with leaving the scene of a personal injury auto accident, reckless driving, which are both misdemeanors. She was also issued tickets for leaving the scene of a property damage auto accident and speed unreasonable and prudent. She was processed and released for a future court date. After obtaining all the other pertinent facts, statements of the case, and meeting with the Orange County District Attorney's Office, the charges were upgraded to assault in the 2nd degree, which is a felony. Also, as the mayor stated, the defendant was here lawfully. She was doing work in the community at the time of her arrival. And just to assure everybody that incidents like this are taken very seriously by the police department, and will charge violators and hold them accountable for crimes committed throughout our community. I also see the concerns for pedestrian safety in the park, and will be working on a plan with the Governor's Traffic Safety Committee and the Orange County Stop DWI program for future enforcement, funding to keep pedestrians and motorists safe. We will educate pedestrians on rules of safety for walking and biking. I've noticed many times, since my limited time as chief, pedestrians walking and biking on the wrong side of the road. We know the roads are very narrow and have very little shoulders, if any shoulders at all, so drivers and pedestrians need to be very aware of your surroundings. Of course, pedestrians always should walk facing traffic. Also, of course, you should wear bright colored clothing, take proper precautions, especially walking after dusk. Be aware of your surroundings, the blind turns, intersections, etc. I've also notified patrols, we're gonna increase our radar details and are looking to maybe obtaining more of the speed limit radar signs, which are a good thing because you also can collect data on those signs of the speeds of vehicles, how many vehicles passed it, and you get like a mean average and everything else on that. And lastly, as we talked about the discussion of lowering the speed limit, which of course I would be an advocate for that also. As always, if anybody has any questions, feel free to contact me. I'm always available. And if anybody else has any questions, let me know.
There was a second incident, Chief. Just a brief summary for the public, what happened last Friday in terms of unlawful access into the, essentially a misrepresentation by a non-resident to gain access into the village. I mentioned it during my opening remarks. He said he was going to Village Hall and he ended up. The second time. The first time he was turned around.
The second time, correct.
Yeah.
He first came about an hour before that, looking for a new housing development or whatever, construction project down the road where
Tuxedo Reserve.
he was turned away. He came back approximately an hour later and stated he was going to the Village Hall, which, at the time we did not have the authority to, turn him away, and somehow in his way to the Village Hall or not to the Village Hall, that's where he went up to that location and got stuck. But at this time, it was just, we took the criminal report and the owner of the property did not want to press any charges. So at this time, there were no trespassing charges filed.
And as I said in my opening remarks, based on that incident, you've agreed to meet with the trustee-elect Turner and his committee to discuss possible alternatives at the front gate for admitting non-residents to improve front gate security.
Absolutely.
That's
Yep,
right.
we will
And
definitely work on that.
We appreciate that, and we'll try to get that done by the end of the summer. So thank you very much for your report. Anybody have any questions for the chief about the incidents he just described? Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Any trustee question?
Well,
Juma?
we discussed the additional speed signs and you mentioned it. We have just the one. Can we put that on the agenda as a new business item? Or do you want to just wait till next month?
Yeah, I would prefer
Get-
to wait till
okay.
next month, get the
All right.
estimated costs of each sign.
You got some estimates,
Okay,
didn't
yep,
you?
we do have some estimates.
Okay.
I got an estimate for 3. There's options with them to.
We can put it on at the reorg meeting if you want to move quicker than that.
Okay.
It can be,
Reorg will
the
be
reorg's
easier.
gonna July 8th instead
Okay.
of the 17th. That's fine. One other item, I just want to get some information from you. In our conversation when we met yesterday, you mentioned that the fireworks displays that the town is, the Tuxedo Club is planning both for July 4th and September do require extra police presence. Have you come up with any approximate amount that you believe it's costing the village to provide police protection for those two events?
Well, I would feel that you probably need about 5 officers for each event. So it would probably be a couple $1,000s in police services.
Okay.
I spoke to the manager for the 4th of July one to put an operational plan in place, and seems like everything is pretty well covered with that, with the fire department being on board, the ambulance, and we'll have the police on board with that. So I think that'll all go well.
We're meeting him on the 2nd anyway.
Yes, and we're
11
sitting
o'clock.
down on the 2nd for some other issues.
Okay, thank you, chief.
Thank you.
Oh, Matt? Mr. Tenari, you have a question for the chief?
Thank you. Matthew Tenari, 94 Pine Hill. Just a quick comment. The second incident happened on my property. I think we would be supportive of this committee figuring out ways to improve security, but as a matter of course, the police should not be letting anyone into the park who tried once and got turned away and changed to a different approach. That's clearly just trying to circumvent the rules. So I don't think we need a committee to give you the answer on that one.
Okay, Matt, I appreciate that, but there are more issues than that one. The initial entry consideration is one we have to discuss, whether, I'd rather not say it in public, but we all understand you provide certain information to the officer and the officer lets you in, whether you live here or not, and we should evaluate whether that really is sufficient for the purposes of front gate security. So we'll take.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. I'm just saying if someone comes one time and they say something and get turned away, and then they come back and try a different approach, whether it's this approach that you're referencing now or any other address that they Google, that person should not be let in regardless of whether they know someone's name and address that they can find on Google.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you, Matt. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Chief. Okay. Next, our DPW Supervisor, Jeff Voss.
Oh, okay, well, the first 2 weeks, or the first 2 weeks of the last week of May and the first week of June was spent picking up trees from the microburst that we had. We also removed 6 dead trees on the village office property. Or I'm sorry, 6 dead trees on East Lake Road at the south end of the lake. We also removed some dead trees on village office property. Clean drains and basins, weed whacked triangle on Ridge Road, patched potholes on Circuit Road, Tower Hill Road, Pine Road, Westlake Road, Westlake Stable Road, and Weewa Road. We did some drainage work on Continental Road. We replaced an 8-inch drain pipe and some gutter work. Steam clean boats. We installed the new ladder on the raft at Weewa Park. We repaired a sinkhole that opened up on East Lake Stable Road. We replaced the yield sign on Clubhouse Road. We replaced the gate arm at the south gate and pads on the main gate arm. Painted fire hydrants on Ridge Road, Pine Hill Road, Pine Road, Lookout Road, Circuit Road, and Continental Road. Currently, John is doing meter readings for the second quarter. We repaired a manhole on Clubhouse Road Extension. Did various markouts. Worked on a chlorine pump at the Mountain Farm Pump Station. Obtained various meter readings requested by Denise. Installed an irrigation meter at the McKinnon residence on Ivy Road. And repaired a malfunctioning meter at the town sewer pump station, which I believe now all the malfunctioning meters have been repaired. But I'm sure there'll be a short list after John does the meter readings for this quarter. So that's it.
Thank you. You guys have been working very, very hard, and I know one of the things that's pending is road paving, right? Capital Planning Committee
Yes.
is going to make
I have a
recommendations.
recommendation
Oh.
for tonight.
Okay, that's great.
Are you gonna stay?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, as long as the weather doesn't get much worse.
Okay. All right, yeah, so thank you. We have the initial road paving estimate, which I referred to the Capital Planning Committee, and they're gonna make their recommendations. So that I've just been told, so that's great. Okay, with respect to the Water Department, the record is attached now for John Ledwith, advisor to the board, and Building and Land Use Officer. Floor is yours, sir.
Thank you. We received a request for certificate of occupancy at 103 Westlake Road, and that was issued. We also received the C of O request for 12 Pine Hill Road. That was not issued because of violations that are prevalent at that site. That site is up for sale, and I did speak to the people that are interested in buying the property, and they assured me that they would take care of those repairs once the house is purchased. But I told them because of the repairs, I could not issue a C of O. I did remind them of the requirement to have an oil tank tested before a sale. And if they do buy the property without the proper inspection, they should get the oil tank inspected as soon as they own the property. Most of the major projects are going along very well. 1223 Tower Hill Road East, the Pays property. They're working extensively on the outside and a lot of little things on the inside at this point. 15 Summit Road, working on insulating the inside and landscaping and other things on the outside. So things are going fairly well. 86 Pawtucket Road, finalizing a kitchen renovation. 17 Weewa Road, there's a basement renovation nearing completion. The contractor called me today for a final inspection by the end of this week. 72 Lookout Road, a long-standing problem we had with an oil tank that needed to be either abandoned or removed. They chose to abandon it in place, but they provided test results to us that the soil beneath the tank does not appear to be contaminated. So they filled the tank with stone and it will remain there at this point. A number of other projects going fairly well. As of today, I believe the lighting energy savings assessment has been completed. We have to just double check on a few fixtures that we weren't sure if they had found in their travels. But I believe all that work has been pretty much done. So we should start seeing some incremental savings, in the following months. That's a summary. Okay.
Questions from the board members? Trustee Scherer? Any questions? for John?
No, no questions.
Just finally, as you'll see, or you could see earlier, the project regarding the roof and wall repair is nearing completion. I'm told it should be completely done by early next week.
And the capital planning committee will look at expanding Village Hall into a portion of that space.
Yep.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you. The treasurer report, Elizabeth says they're attached to the record. Any questions from the board on the treasurer's reports? No? Okay. And then we move on to the deputy mayor's report on climate smart and other matters.
Yeah, well, since we're talking about capital planning, I'll do that one first.
Sure.
We've been meeting weekly as a committee, and so we have kind of focused on priorities to get going with right away. And we had spoken with Jeff about Circuit Road needing to be milled and paved. So we recommend that we go forward with that. And we also know that I have a question for you about the milling, because you say that obviously the village office driveway and parking lot also needs to be milled.
Milling is what we did to Tuxedo Road last.
Oh, okay.
Where they take, a specified amount off and then you refill. Reclamating is full depth reclamating. They grind the road up. They go down 6 to 8 inches to create a new road base. When the road's so bad, that paving is not gonna help it. You wanna, especially if you have drainage problems, you wanna grind it up and regrade it and have a nice new base to lay fresh asphalt.
Okay.
So that's what reclamating.
Okay, thanks for that explanation. So, you want to do the reclamation for both Circuit and the village office? Okay, so if we waited until after the village offices, the repairs are made, can you do that, 2 different times, or would you want to schedule it so it both places would be done at the same time?
It would have to be at the same time because the 2 projects, Village Hall and Circuit Road, is only a day's work.
Okay.
So it would be done at the same time. They would probably do, come back, but you're gonna pay mobilization.
Right.
A couple $1,000.
So that then kind of poses another question, if we should just go ahead with that, both Circuit and the village office, at the same time before the construction's complete. Do you think that causes it?
What? Talking about the roof?
Well, there's more that we're considering doing. John, what do you think?
There's a lot of work that may occur, carpentry and masonry and stuff, but I don't think it's the type of work. I don't think it's the type of work that requires heavy equipment that might damage the asphalt. So I think we're confident in recommending, let's get it done.
Okay.
And the smaller construction trucks that may have to come here are not necessarily gonna damage the asphalt.
Okay, good. Okay, so then the capital planning committee recommends that we do focus both on circuit and the village office.
Okay.
So,
I have one question. You know, in my drives around the village, my twice or three weekly drives around the village, the area of Weewa Road between the dam and the bridge over the stream seems to really need some work.
I would recommend doing this year also, from the sewer plant to the DPW at least.
Hmm,
That's the worst part.
yeah,
I think you
yeah.
have that on the list, right?
Is it on the
Let's see.
list?
It's on there.
Okay,
We-
I mean,
Well, what's on the list is to come from the sewer plant all the way to Westlake Stadium.
Oh, right.
yeah, that's 71K. We don't have to, I don't think we have to go that far.
Right now, no,
Yeah,
but I definitely recommend that we do that section from the sewer plant to the DPW or to the beach.
Yeah. Have you?
I don't know how to break that out of the 71,000, but
I will, before, maybe tomorrow, I'll figure it out and then I'll.
okay.
All right, we'll table it till the reorg meeting. That we're not gonna get started immediately, are you? Get started later in the summer, right? Yeah, okay, all right, and then we'll make a final decision.
Okay,
Is that
good.
agreeable?
Oh, of course.
Yeah,
You had said that you wanted to get on the schedule of that contracting company.
Again today, left a message, I want to get on your schedule and give me a call, so
Okay,
I haven't spoken to him yet.
okay. But he would be the one that would be doing the reclamation.
No.
Oh, no,
Separate. The company I'm trying to get on schedule for is the paving.
the paving. Okay,
And like I told you during our conversation, we may end up doing it ourselves depending on what his schedule is like because of the workload that he has.
okay. All right. Okay, so we'll get another cost estimate
Yep.
and then do it at the
We'll
reorg.
address it at the reorg meeting, yeah.
Okay, is that okay, Josh and Joanne? Okay. The other, is the village office. We looked at it today, John and I, and actually Jake came along and we measured, it's approximately 900 square feet of space right now. And, so we would like to ask, the board to approve us, having John reach out to some architects to get estimates on what it would be to reuse that as additional village office space for storage and offices.
Yeah. Okay, so we're looking to get estimates on
On the, as from an architect.
from an architect. We would also provide us with plans.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, I don't think we need to, a resolution for that because we'll expend the money once the proposals come in, right? We just need authorization to reach out to various architects and get
Okay.
proposals back.
All right.
Josh,
Is that good?
are you in favor of that?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I agree with you. I don't know why we need to approve anything right now.
No, there's nothing to approve because we're not spending any money yet.
Exactly.
Okay,
right.
all right, so yeah,
Okay, so we'll
please,
do that.
please, John,
So
John will
John-
reach out and we'll see what the proposals are and then we'll evaluate them once they come in.
Okay, another thing that we came up with is having an analysis from Weston and Sampson to review the water loss calculations.
Hmm.
John, do you want to expand on that a little bit?
I think it would be prudent, not to spend a ton of money or time on it, but just to have somebody else who's familiar with the water plant system, the pumping system, who can just double check our numbers. I don't know what, how much we need to spend, but just someone to double check our math and our numbers to make sure we're not missing something.
Our calculations were already done. Were they done in-house?
Yes,
Okay,
yes. But I just think it's prudent to have somebody else confirm that we're not missing something because the water loss is large and we've had water loss testing done. We fix a few leaks. If we're aware of a large leak, Jeff repairs it. We could tell from some of the data sheets when the leak occurred. We see the spike, for 2 days, 3 days, and then it comes back down. But we never get much closer than, 49 or so percent as far as water loss. And It's been kind of eluding us for a long time.
Are you saying we lose half of our water?
Yes. Rather
Yeah.
consistently.
Yeah.
And that kind of bothers me because we've had a number of water loss studies done by different companies over the years, including some things in-house. And it's millions of gallons at the end of the day. And I don't know what we're doing wrong. There are some proposals to install meters in different areas to calculate different things. And it's a lot of work. It's a lot of tedious work. It can be done. But I think before we take another step, we just have somebody else. I don't know if we give them 20 hours just to confirm our data to see if they have anything else they could, add to it. But I would just rather somebody from the outside look at it. And maybe, I know we've done it at least twice that I've been aware of. We've calibrated the meter at the water plant. So we think we know what's getting pumped into the system. But I think someone else has to confirm it for, a small budget number.
We'll find out how much it'll cost.
Yeah,
We'll address
Another
it.
reorg.
Another reorg. It's gonna be if the reorg meeting lasts as long as it did last in September, we're gonna be here all night, but okay.
Okay, so now, the dam, that's
Yep.
having a leak. So we were, wondering, what the process is. We wanted a little clarification on, lowering the water level. Is it just in the,
I'm sorry.
well, do you know if or maybe it's a question for Joe, is it just the water in pond 3 that needs
Yeah.
to be lowered?
Yeah, they'd like to lower the water level in pond 3. And based upon the level that we lower it to kind of determine where the water is getting, obviously past the dam and coming out on the other side. That was their kind of most practical approach. I don't even think he gave us a budget for that because it would just involve us, lowering the Weewell Lake. There are some other variables Jeff can tell you.
Depending on when this is done, it may require lowering Tuxedo Lake for a short period.
Because if the water is still coming over Tuxedo Lake, you're still having to lower it here. Unless we can lower the level of pond number 3 faster than the water that's coming in up the stream. Because sometimes it isn't coming down,
Wait for high summer, right, not a wet year.
Well, we met with, what, 3 or 4 different engineering firms?
Yes.
How many of them have actually provided us with a proposal?
I checked today, we've gotten 2 responses.
Right.
And the third one, they wanted some information from me, which I gave them a response yesterday. And that response pretty much wanted to know if the prior permit was closed and if we can do operation and maintenance on the dam without any further approvals. And that's really a question for the DEC.
See,
That's
yeah,
not ours.
yeah.
So we've gotten 2 responses with actual quotes
Mhm.
and recommendations from Weston and Sampson without any number.
Right.
So.
So
So we need to move on
we need to
that.
consider, we have at least three proposals, or at least 2 plus 1, so we gotta move on that. Yeah, okay.
All right, and then I see on the agenda that we're going to approve the water treatment plant clear well upgrade and design services, right? Which is required.
Required, yeah,
That's a required action.
yes.
So obviously. I think we budgeted. Yeah, so that's good. And then the question was the other required actions, where we stand with those. The asbestos pipe. That's only,
I think that was
well,
put into
it's just a
the,
renewal.
it's just a
of,
renewal of an
section.
application.
Okay,
Just jog my memory, what were the other 2, and I might be able to
the
help you.
dam certification forms,
That was also a budget item that has
Yep.
to be done yearly.
okay. And then, well, the other ones are large, the investigation of the subbasins.
That's the I one.
It's required.
Which I think is required, and we should, we have to speak to Joe about where he is with that.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll get an updated report from Joe.
Yeah, they are working on something, but I don't know enough about it right now to give you a competent
And
briefing.
so we will have that for
We'll
next,
get an
not the
update.
reorg,
Yes,
the next
yes.
monthly
We'll
meeting.
get an update from Weston and Sampson, how they're doing on the basins.
Okay.
Okay.
And then the last thing is, we were looking at the water, water accounts and wondering about which water pipes are shared water pipes and what we can do about that. We were talking about somehow separating them. Having it,
Today, multiple units fed by one service line, there's no way to put a separate shut off. You would have to put a separate water line to the other residence.
so,
I think it involves a much more deeper conversation
yes,
amongst the
okay,
committee.
let's do that.
Um,
Okay, all right, that was it.
Okay, anything on climate smart?
Yes.
Add to that? Yeah.
I just want to remind everybody that the deadline is July 5th. If you choose to opt out of the community choice aggregation program, and everybody who is eligible should have received a mailing. And if you did not receive a mailing, most likely it's because the account holder had put either a block on their account or years ago had contracted with third-party supplier, and that's why they wouldn't be eligible. But if you choose to unblock your account and get out of your contract with your third-party supplier, you can always opt in at any time to the program. Tomorrow, there will be a virtual meeting with Jewel Community Power, and we'll post that on the website, and I'll ask Denise to send the link and the helpline number. And then the last thing is the Clean Energy Campaign, which we are doing right now. We promote electric vehicles, clean heating and cooling, and community solar. And so far, we have 5 residents that have purchased electric vehicles, which means the state will award us $5,000 to put towards clean energy upgrades. And we have people who have are looking at clean heating and cooling. And if there are 5 people, and it is either in the town or the village, just combined, 5 residents, will get 5,000 more towards the clean energy upgrades. And then finally, if 10 people sign up for community solar, we'll get another 5,000. So there is a let me start that over. There's a community solar opportunity being given to us by Jewel, and this is different than community choice aggregation. And if people would like to learn more about it, please let me know.
Michelle, I just have a question. Are any of the purchases, so community solar and then electric vehicles, are any of those retroactive?
No, it has to be from April 16th
Of
this year, because that's when we had our clean energy campaign approved by the state.
I see. I understand.
But the John and I were questioning, and I have to find the answer from the state. If people maybe started a geothermal or clean heating program with heat pumps, air source heat pumps or geothermal, we have to find out when the applicable date is. Is it when you get your final completion or certificate that it's completed, or was it when you started? So it's possible that some projects that are underway right now will apply, even if they were started before April 16th.
So I think if you remember at the last village meeting, I actually had 2 announcements. One was I was going to investigate on, the voter registration challenge. The other was an announcement that I was about to launch a geothermal project, and happy to announce that that is complete now, very quick. So that wrapped up today. I actually just logged into the app and it's working perfectly. So it's a very quick and rapid process. I know that there are a number of other people in the park that are installing them. So that's probably information we should get if we as a village get benefit from people putting in geothermal units. I think there are probably 5 or 6 projects ongoing, and I know there are other people that are actively looking at putting geothermal in. So, and if you don't mind, like just we have a bigger audience today. I'll tell you, Matt Tenari put me onto this. And I did the work, ultimately got the payback period to make sense. You have to do your own analysis, but you get significant federal and state tax benefits. So the federal tax benefit is 30% of the total cost of the project. The state is up to $5,000. And then in addition to that, you get a very significant check from the utility. Why? I don't know. I don't care. But it may make sense for people, particularly if your HVAC unit is at or system is at the end of its useful life, which mine was. Mine had been installed, I think, in 2005, so it was coming. It needed to be replaced anyway. It can make a lot of sense. But long way of saying, Michelle, if you need the information on if we do get a benefit as a community, I can help you track down names of people that are currently installing them, and so that we can get that benefit.
Excellent, thank you. I will follow up with you on that. And then very lastly, we have had a greenhouse gas emission report that Jim Hayes and John put together. And we would like to ask the village to have perhaps Fiona provide a template so that every month when utility and fuel bills come in, they can go right into that report that they've already done, but just to make it easy for those numbers to be put in right as they're being invoiced and paid.
Need to be more in. If you do that, the inventory will snap.
Right.
If you don't do it, you have.
A running account. You want a running account.
Because
Yeah.
the state wants to see improvements you make and how much they've reduced greenhouse gas emissions. And then you get more awards for that.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
that
we'll
is
talk
it.
to Fiona about it because she's on the agenda next on a different subject. Just to refresh everybody's recollection, Fiona Doherty is the daughter of our clerk treasurer, Elizabeth Doherty, and we hired her several months ago for a special project. The 3 appointed boards have fees for applicants for whatever services the board is providing, professional services, architects, engineers, and at some point, maybe a year ago, we lost the services of our remote clerk, Desiree Hickey, who was no longer doing the accounting to determine how much the village was owed as for professional services that were provided by the experts at each of the 3 boards. And the board approved Fiona, who is presently attending college, to essentially evaluate the information, put it all together, and reach a determination as to how much money we were owed from the various applicants over the last year or year and a half. And I'm pleased to report that she has provided us this evening to the board. Josh, I don't know if you got that by email, but we'll see that you get a copy. Her preliminary report indicates that there's outstanding a balance of $16,794 from various applicants who appeared before the 3 boards, and we will be billing them for those amounts, which are above and beyond the escrow payments that were made at the time of the initial application. And Fiona is online to answer any questions that anyone might have. And before she gets live and available, I, as mentioned to the former mayor, Fiona has IT skills, and I am proposing that now that she has essentially completed this first project, that she move on to updating the village website. and she has agreed to do the same. This particular project, we initially gave her 20 hours, but it took 45 hours to finish at $20 per hour. I'm going to be asking the board for authorization to pay her as she completes this project. And she's willing to work on the IT system at $20 per hour. And we can start off with perhaps an initial 20-hour assignment and see where it goes from there. So Fiona, if you would, if John, would you unmute Fiona? If anybody has any questions for her?
Yeah, she just unmuted herself, I think. Fiona?
Hello.
Any member of the board have any questions for Fiona? I know, Josh, you may not have this report, but we'll see that you get it in the next day by email. She just completed it this afternoon.
It was emailed to you earlier today, Josh.
Okay, so he does have it. Any questions?
What can I ask about this additional thing, or we want to just stick with this?
Oh, the IT?
No, the template
Oh,
for
yeah.
the utility bills.
Oh, yeah, sure,
Okay,
sure.
can we-
Yeah.
if we could
If she
approve
can,
that
if
as
she-
well.
Yeah, sure. You might as well. She's on.
So Fiona, we're discussing creating a template so that utility and fuel bills can be input directly. And so we could keep a running tab on our greenhouse gas emissions. Does that seem, would that be okay with you?
I think my only question is you say input directly. I'm not sure if you're referring to some internal system. I'm still new to everything, so I just,
Oh, okay, no, I'm just thinking that if you had the template, the Excel spreadsheet, and then when it's time for, the utility bills come in and the fuel bills come in, to put them where they belong on the spreadsheet according to which department. So it would be creating, John, the template is, she could just take what you guys did, the report?
Yeah, Fiona, I think it just comes down to using an Excel template and keeping track of the kilowatt hours on a monthly basis, so we know what we're saving and what we're not saving, and doing it monthly instead of letting several months pass. So you could either get the information right off the utility bills as they come through the mail, or you may be able to access our accounts online, as I think Elizabeth can do from time to time, and you could pull the data right from there and include it in a spreadsheet. And you can give that report to us monthly.
Okay, that'd be great.
Sure.
And John and Jim Hayes put the original report together, so
Is
they
it
could work with you.
Is it something you think you can handle, Fiona?
yeah, that sounds pretty reasonable. I've worked with spreadsheets and putting data in. That's usually what I do, so sounds good to me.
All right, so getting
Excellent.
back to your report, any of the trustees have any questions for Fiona about the work she provided in her report dated today? Professional fees?
No, this is just a report, but they haven't been billed yet.
No, that's right. The report just came out and we're going to bill them as quickly as possible.
I think the agreement was when I talked to Fiona today, we're gonna get these bills out or by Friday.
Right.
Um,
And then my other question is, okay, this is all for past bills. Now, what's going on for current bills? Because we just got a bill for at least Terhune. How is that going to be handled so we don't have to be in this situation again?
I think going forward, it's when items fall behind, that's where the trouble comes in, because it's not a billing project, then it becomes an organization and research project. It takes time to comb together all the data. But going forward, if it's just, I know at the Village of Monroe, where I worked as planning board secretary, we sent out bills monthly and that worked best for us. And so that's the kind of system that I would follow unless someone else had any other suggestions.
You can do that in QuickBooks, right? You do it through QuickBooks, I think, just to bill directly, so we don't get in this situation again.
Yeah, I'm still very new to the Tuxedo Village Park QuickBooks system, but if it works as I think it should work, which is it has all the information lined up and you can send it to directly to applicants, it shouldn't be a problem at all to send bills to people monthly as it comes in.
I think you can create an invoice and right through QuickBooks and somehow it ties in, but, okay, just so we don't find ourselves in this situation again.
All right, we'll stay current on these invoices.
I have a question on that. So I know in the town, like if we have an escrow decided, we decide what the escrow should be. And if they get to it down to a certain amount, we ask them maybe not to replenish it the whole way, but if they're only halfway through a project, then they have to replenish the escrow so that the money's there already, even before the bills come in from the consultants. Should we do
We
that?
do have a policy. Fortunately, most of the applicants that we're billing now only had to come to maybe 1 or 2 meetings. So their project was approved by the planning board, or most likely the bar. And once they leave the board, they're not paying for legal fees at the meeting. They're not paying for architectural review fees if needed. So in most cases, we don't have to replenish it because they're done with the review in a relatively short time. But there is a full policy, which I'll show you, that requires the applicant to at least, I think, maintain half of the initial escrow through the project.
Okay.
Thanks.
Anybody else on the professional fee report done by Fiona? Okay. All right, thank you, Fiona. We'll authorize payment to you as part of the old business. Okay, so next item is the approval of the meeting minutes of May 22nd, May 28th, and June 5th. Have all the trustees had a chance or an opportunity to review the minutes? Are there any corrections, changes, additions, or deletions that any of the trustees wish to make?
I wasn't at one of the meetings, so I'll abstain.
Okay,
on that.
which meeting, trustee Shaw?
June 5th.
Okay, so,
I'm happy to agree with the other two.
okay, yeah, we'll do it separately. So I'll make the following resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees approve the minutes from the following meetings. May 22nd, 2024, May 28th, 2024, which was a modification of the water budget. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by the deputy mayor. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Do we have an aye?
During the minutes,
The first two.
the first two.
First two,
yeah.
aye, okay. And
And
now,
Josh?
he voted
Yeah,
aye.
oh, he did.
Yeah. Secondary resolution, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees approve the minutes from the meeting of June 5th, 2024, which was a special meeting to accept donation of a generator. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by the deputy mayor. All in favor or abstaining?
Aye.
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 Josh?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, and I'll
Trustee
abstain.
Shaw is abstaining as she was not present at that meeting. All right, as I just mentioned a few moments ago, Fiona worked for 45 hours, and she got this report done. Of course, we had no idea how much time was going to be involved when we authorized an initial 20 hours. Her rate of pay is $20 an hour, and I'm requesting that the board approve a final bill of 45 hours worth of work at $20 an hour. And going forward, of course, there will be, if she does the work that the deputy mayor requested, and we can discuss the issue of upgrading the IT, the homepage, she'll get paid for that, but this is for past work that she did. So with respect to that, I make the following motion. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees authorize retroactively part-time clerk Fiona Doherty to work an additional 25 hours on the professional fees escrow accounts, which would make it a total amount of time dedicated to this project of 45 hours. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Shaw. Any discussion?
No.
Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, carries unanimously, Elizabeth. Okay, next item on the agenda is the reorg meeting. I've proposed the date of July 8th of 2024. Is that a date that works for you, Deputy Mayor?
Well, it is a town board meeting date.
I
But
thought they
it's
worked on didn't they meet on the first? Oh, they meet on
second
the
and
second.
fourth.
Oh, okay. And what time do they meet?
Well, I mean, when would you want to have the meeting?
We can do it at 5.
That's what I was thinking, if we do it earlier.
Are you able to attend, trustee Scherer at 5 o'clock on July 8th?
I will be in Europe.
Yeah, okay,
I'm happy to attend remotely.
okay. And trustee-elect Turner, I see that you're on. Would you be able to attend at 5 o'clock on July 8th, Monday, July 8th? So that we
That
don't
works.
have
Yep.
a quorum?
Yep.
Okay,
Oh,
so
okay.
we'll have a quorum, that's fine, and we'll get in touch with trustee Brooke and see if he's able to attend. So I
Great.
make a motion that we schedule, be resolved, the Board of Trustees schedule the annual reorganizational meeting for 5 PM Monday, July 8th, 2024. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by the deputy mayor. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. You're still on the board. You have to vote. You don't have to vote. Okay. Carries.
I'm sorry. So how did Tinka vote? I'm sorry.
Think about it, aye.
Okay, thank you.
4-0. Okay. Next item is the acknowledgement of a replacement ladder donation by Joanna Karbowska. As I indicated in my remarks, she very generously and quickly provided a replacement ladder for the floating dock at the Weewa. And it's quite a piece of work. It's going to last for a long, long time. The total cost of that ladder was, according to the catalog, $14.95 plus tax and shipping. And as required, I would like to make a resolution to accept the gift that she has made to the village. Whereas Joanna Karbowska has presented the village of Tuxedo Park a gift in the form of a Weewa Park floating dock ladder valued at a total of $14.95 plus tax and shipping. And whereas said donation will be used by the Weewa Park for safe access to and from the floating dock, and whereas the Board of Trustees of the Village of Tuxedo Park deems acceptance of such gift to be in the best interest of the Village of Tuxedo Park, now therefore be it resolved that said gift is gratefully accepted and the mayor is authorized to accept the donation and to use the donation in furtherance of Weewa Park. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Shaw. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 4-0. Thank you, Ms. Karbowska, for the very generous gift. Next item, Weston and Sampson Water Treatment Plant Clearwell Upgrade and Design Services. This is a mandatory work required by the DEC, and I will make the following resolution so we can discuss it. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees approve the Weston and Sampson proposal for the water treatment plant Clearwell upgrade and design services at the cost of $28,300 to be charged to the water fund budget, code 8330.4, purification contractual. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion?
No, I'm good.
Everybody's okay? All right, I'll
Yep.
call the question. All in favor, please say aye.
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 4-0, Elizabeth. Next item is to approve Cooper and Arias as auditors for fiscal year 25. I assume you all received the multi-page retainer. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees authorize Cooper Arias to perform the fiscal year 2024-2025 audit. Is it 2024? No, it's
the fiscal year
2023
to
2024.
Mhm.
Yes,
Oops, sorry about that.
that's okay. To perform the fiscal year 2023 to 2024 audit at the price of $22,500 to be charged to budget code 1320.4 auditor contractual. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by trustee Shaw. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is a planning board appointment. I know that this issue was discussed in public comment. I provided every member of the Board of Trustees Ms. Stahl's resume. She's an experienced attorney. I believe she would add she would add greatly to the planning board, and since the planning board chair is here and knows her personally, I would ask him if he chooses to speak about his knowledge of Ms. Toll's experience and how much she would add to the planning board.
Oh, yeah.
I'll go up so you can.
Yes.
Chair Reichcott.
Thank you, sir. You've all seen her resume. She is quite accomplished. I've had the privilege of working with her on the Tuxedo Park School Board of Trustees, where I find her to be one of the very involved and energetic trustees. And I wholeheartedly support her appointment. I would also just like to say for the record that this process hasn't taken place in the dark. There have been numerous calls for volunteers. There have been numerous attempts, both by myself and the mayor, other members of the planning board, past members of the planning board, to search for candidates. And in fact, at least one meeting of this board, in the record, in the comments, we called for people to come forward. And so
I just have one comment. That's, I mean, what do we have? Maybe 10 people who might attend the meetings and that. So making an announcement at the meeting is not making a wide announcement like a mayor's email. And I think that's much more appropriate. I mean,
I just to respond,
I have no problem with Stephanie. I mean, I like her. I think she's capable and everything, but I think that we should follow it that way and not just a select group of people who happen to, you know, maybe somebody found some time recently, weren't aware that there was an opening on the board.
Let me just respond to one thing you said, and that is that I put out a monthly message, and in one of or more of my monthly messages, I did ask, you know, not everybody gets it because you have to be on the village email system, but I always tell people, join the email system, you'll get my monthly message. I have asked people to volunteer for the boards and the committees. So people are aware that these committees exist, and I suspect Jay's worked hard and I've worked hard to recruit people. I think Ms. Stoll is an excellent candidate. If your suggestion is to put something in my mayor's message on the website, please volunteer. I'm happy to do that. It's a valid suggestion.
Yeah, I just think it's the right thing to do.
Okay.
To
I
try to
think there,
get.
yeah, I think also that someone's term on each board expires every year.
That is
right?
correct. Every year somebody, that's the system.
That's
Every
the
year
system.
somebody is up for replacement or continuation.
Or to be reappointed.
I mean, I leave this question to the board. It's not my place to say how this should move forward, but I just wanted to make it known that, you know, we didn't just look in our pocket and pick somebody.
Plus, it was in, I'm sure, a monthly newsletter that you recognized Joanne Hansen's resignation and her years of service. So it was, it should have been obvious that there was a, you know, an opening.
A vacancy. Well, that being said, I'd like to move along and we'll see how the vote goes. But be it resolved that the Board of Trustees appoints Stephanie Stoll to the Planning Board to fill a vacancy on the board when Joanne Hansen resigned for the remainder of Ms. Hansen's 5-year holdover term, which actually ends in 1 year. And I asked for a second on this particular nomination. Do I have a second?
No second.
Okay, open for discussion. Any members of the board want to comment on this nomination?
Yeah, no,
I know.
that's all I said, no, since you, I don't know, I don't remember seeing the email that now there is a vacancy from Joanne Hansen, so that's all. As I said, I have no problem with Stephanie, but I just think maybe make it very clear that we are seeking for someone to replace Joanne Hansen, so I'm not sure that was clear.
Trustee Scherer.
Yeah, I think she's super well qualified and very comfortable with the process that got us to this point.
Okay. Anything from the
No,
deputy
I
mayor?
agree. I
Okay.
know her well as a neighbor, and I know how qualified she is, so she'll be a great member of the board.
Okay. I'll call the question. All in favor? Aye.
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 Three ayes, one abstention from trustee Shaw. Her nomination is approved. Okay. Next item, again, as we discussed, Fiona is willing to upgrade the village website. We can start with a maximum of 40 hours to do that job at the rate of $20 per hour. So I make the following resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Trustees approve part-time clerk Fiona Doherty to work on the village website for a maximum of 40 hours at a rate of $20 per hour. Do I have a second?
One second.
Second by the deputy mayor. Discussion.
Well, requires.
Go ahead, Michelle.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Josh.
Nope.
Okay, if she requires, just as we did approve additional hours, that's what we'll do. And then, should we, amend the resolution to say that she would work on the greenhouse gas emission inventory as well?
I have no objection to that amendment to the resolution. So, the resolution will read, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees approve part-time clerk Fiona Doherty to work on the village website as well as the
Greenhouse gas emission inventory.
okay, greenhouse gas emission inventory for a maximum of 40 hours at a rate of $20 per hour. Do you second that?
I did already, yep.
Okay, fine. Any further discussion?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I think it's great. By the way, this has been, notwithstanding our former mayor's comments, this has been an ongoing issue of keeping the website updated. And, you know, I know that we've talked about outsourcing it in the past. That obviously comes with a cost. Our former mayor had IT skills and so volunteered his time, which was great. That's obviously, or was clearly not a sustainable solution. I'm totally in favor of Fiona. She's doing an amazing job. But I do think we do need to have a longer term solution in place, something that's sustainable, that, you know, lives beyond our individual terms. And just candidly a process. I mean, and maybe this is even something Fiona can think about, which is, you know, providing documentation, basically a roadmap, like what needs to be done on a monthly basis, right, to keep the website up to date. Just a suggestion, but we need a more sustainable solution than just paying, you know, Fiona, you know, 20 bucks an hour for 40 hours.
Okay, well, this is a good start, I see.
I agree.
I agree. We'll work forward from there with people that have more knowledge about this than I do. And so I'll call the question. Any other comments, or I'll call the question? No? Okay. All in favor? Aye.
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 Josh? Aye. 4-0. Thank you, Fiona. We'll see you back at Village Hall when you're available. Okay. Next item on the agenda is discussing a hiring of seasonal Weewa Park manager. Actually, this is based on a letter that I received. I believe every member of the board received it from Matt Tenari with various suggestions, and Matt's here. So Matt, would you be able to make us a presentation about the various requests that you have to the board with respect to the operation of the Weewa, and then we can discuss them in front of you?
Sure. So in that email, I touched on a few things. Let me just, I'll pull it back up here. But one of them was already completed. I had three, the committee had three requests for the trustees. One was to publicly thank Joanna Carbasco for the high quality ladder that she replaced. So thank you for that. The second one was requesting permission to at least start looking for a seasonal Weewa Park manager. Unclear if we will be able to find one to finish out the season here, but definitely with an eye towards next season. And then the third was a request for a dedicated Weewa bank account, because it really is and has become an operating entity with a lot of activity. We have the membership is the last 2 years has been as high as we think it has been. We don't have all the historical data, and the park has been getting a lot of usage. So there are things that need to be fixed. There are a lot of events being programmed that require, in certain cases, refreshments or printing out large pictures for historical event, a whole bunch of different things. Then separately, the committee is working on, looking at and pricing out potential options for a playground upgrade and other smaller physical upgrades. So I think, in general, it's very difficult to, one, be down there every single day and deal with, the complaints from the members, complaints from the lifeguard, potential safety concerns, just overall monitoring of the park cleanliness and making sure there are no issues on a day-to-day basis. So that would be what the request for the seasonal park manager would be focused around. And then for the bank account, in the past couple of years, there have been operating profits from the park to the village. There have been, rentals of the park to other entities. There have been specific donations to the WIWA. And it would be really helpful if, as we think about things, and we can go through a whole process of other approvals, but as we think about things like physical upgrades, playgrounds, like I just got a text now from a lifeguard that the wind ripped the door off the shed, like things that cost money. We don't have to wait for a monthly meeting or a vote from the trustees. We can have a prescribed approval program, whether it's a one-off from our trustee liaison or however it works, to be able to get things done and be able to plan a little bit better.
Well, let me respond in terms of my opinion from the second, the last thing you said to the first. Our primary responsibility as a board of trustees is to safeguard taxpayer finances and monies. That is really the most important thing we do, is to make sure that money is properly spent, and that we have a system of accountability for taxpayer funds. I don't have any, as the mayor, I can't sign checks. Deputy mayor doesn't sign checks. Trustee Shaw doesn't sign checks. Trustee Scherer doesn't sign checks. The only people with check signing authority is the clerk treasurer and the deputy clerk treasurer, Denise Spaltov. I am very reluctant personally to set up an account with taxpayer funds that provides for spending by unelected and, to an extent, unaccountable individuals that happen to be part of a committee. Okay? So I personally, even though I understand your concern and the problem with getting money to make these purchases, I'm more than willing to have the board authorize whatever you need that's appropriate, assuming we all agree on the expense. But I have to tell you that I do not believe that village funds should be deposited into an account controlled by what is a permanent but still an ad hoc committee of residents.
I guess just one comment on that. It is unclear to me that there are any village funds to be distributed to that. If there are, fully agree that we would have to have appropriate controls. What I'm mostly referencing are donations that are specific to the WIWA, which, as far as I understand from Jared, the trustees are not able to use those funds for anything else other than the WIWA, subject to approving investments, and membership revenues and guest passes. So if there were to be a taxpayer component to it, I fully agree, and maybe that is the case. I'm not sure if that is the case.
You indicated that theoretically we could deposit $100,000 in a checking account, which would be membership fees and donations that have been received on behalf. That's a lot of money to put into a checking account for the WIWA committee. And even if we exclude taxpayer funds, the money is still money that has come into the village and is subject to the control of the Board of Trustees. So this is just my personal opinion. The trustees and deputy mayor may feel differently, but I'm expressing my opinion on this particular point. I could not support the creation of a separate checking account, regardless of how it's funded. And that's just the way I feel about it, because the accountability issue is not something I want to put on your shoulders or on the shoulders of your committee members. We operate as a village. We have municipal officers. We have employees that are responsible for dispersing funds. We got a pile of invoices that are being signed, and each one of those invoices represents a check written by Elizabeth or by Denise, and the system works, and there's accountability, and I'm not comfortable.
But I also
can
don't
I-
want that responsibility for volunteers. I don't know that we were requesting the ability to write checks or spend things. I think what we were requesting is an account for the WeWa, so we know how much money is there. Like right now, if someone asks for something, we have $0. I don't know any budget. I can't budget. I can't do anything. So maybe it's not a spending ability. Maybe it's more of a, and by the way, I spent probably with Tinka, probably 25 hours at the end of the season trying to work through different accounting codes and all this stuff to figure out what was WeWa, what was not WeWa. So I think it's more of a tracking thing than a spending thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm hearing, Mayor. I think this makes sense to me. Why wouldn't you have a separate account for the WeWa? You're not giving spending authority to the committee. It's simply a tracking device, which should be way more efficient for everyone.
I don't have any objection to making it was essentially a budget line and an account line. You know, if there's money donated to the WeWa, which can only be spent on the WeWa, you know, we can put it in there, and then the committee will know how much money is there. But my concern, and you know, correct me if I'm wrong, if Elizabeth's the one that's going to be cutting the checks, I don't have a problem with a process where that money is separate.
I don't think Matt was suggesting anything different than that.
Yeah, like I don't want like a
Just one at a time. We're all talking.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So Trustee Shaw wanted to make a statement on the record. Go ahead.
Yeah, we need a separate bank account for the WeWa. There are enough transactions that go in and out. Believe you me, because it gets all mixed in the general fund, because we have the trails thing and we have the tree advisory board. We have all these other things, and and we have enough transactions within the WeWa beach that I definitely think we need a separate account for that. We don't have, like in the tree advisory board, you might have 10 donations a year and they might, you know, pay things out of there, but you need to have it, especially when you have, it's going to be every single year, a lot of people donating and paying for membership.
So in the general fund, we have the general fund, and then there's the savings account. And so it could be something like that, like
Just a separate-
another
yeah.
account.
We have a water account, we have a
Yeah,
sewer account.
my primary
County
concern was really the issue of who's going to cut these checks.
It's
And
still gonna be Elizabeth
if it-
cutting the check.
If it's Elizabeth cutting the checks,
Yeah,
then the
absolutely.
accountability issue is resolved in my mind.
Yeah.
The fact that the money's separate in a separate account is not my concern. My concern was that you know, and all due respect to Matt and his committee, I thought that they wanted a checkbook where they would be, they would be writing checks for supplies or whatever they had to do. Then I misunderstood the proposal, and I would withdraw my objection if it's simply creating a separate account designated for WeWa purchases and expenses, and Elizabeth would still be the check signer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it will make it so much easier to see it, because where all the money actually is going deposited into there, not into a general fund. I think it's.
Yeah,
I think Cooper Arias will be happy too.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, Matt, sounds like you've got support from the board, and I apologize, but I misunderstood what you were proposing.
That's okay. Thank you very much.
Okay.
I know it will help a lot.
That's number one, and number two is the seasonal WeWa park manager. Now, you and I had talked about self-management early on in the year, and we both agreed, or at least I came around to your position, that we needed to have a contractor operating the beach, primarily because your mind and in the mind of other members of the board, it was all about insurance coverage.
Yep.
It turns out that after we completed the agreement, we had to sign it because time had run out. They weren't giving us the type of coverage that we really wanted, $5 or $10 million of liability coverage. I think we've got $2 million. So that was disappointing, and I was able to negotiate some additional services from them in exchange. But with respect to the seasonal beach manager, which I think is a great idea, would we be able to do that and hire the lifeguards and hire the checkers, and essentially looking at next year, create that self-management plan that we decided we were really unable to do this year because of our concern about insurance coverage?
So my initial reaction to that is, I think there's like employees with risk attached to them and employees without. So like someone who manages the grounds and make sure if someone doesn't show up for something, they can fill in, or make sure the lifeguards are not on a cell phone, you know, someone who can really be in the best interest of the members of the WeWalk. I don't think that comes with a lot of risk. The guard position, and this is really for the next season's conversation with the trustees and Scott and Jared, like the question for the guards themselves is, does the village want to introduce a different type of risk to the staff and the taxpayer? That is I think that's a separate topic that we can talk about, but for actually managing that operation, and we're getting lifeguards are saying they need more help. Members are saying have some, you know, complaints about the bathrooms, like just having a person there who's a bit more senior, I think, than a high school or college person would be very helpful and would free up, I know myself and other members of the committee's time, much more time to fundraise and do more longer term planning and some programming.
All right, anybody else want to talk about next year and beach manager? I don't know if it's realistic to be able to get somebody in this year. But how do people feel about a beach manager generally, if we're even able to get one in for July and August?
Well, I don't know that we want to hire as a municipality to.
Yeah, would it be a municipal employee?
Yeah, directly, if it doesn't come through the pool management, unless we could have them hire.
But then we pay the premium because everything they charge, they add an additional 20% for you know, corporate profit. So, I mean, I don't know. How do you see it, Matt? Is this would be a village employee, or this would just be another person we'd ask them to retain on their staff as a?
I mean, I think either option works. I do think that like effectively, I have to go down there frequently and I have to call the company to figure out scheduling and really, you know, fight for what's best for the WeWalk instead of being, you know, just part of the staffing plan. I think this person could be employed directly by the village or through the company if it's very clear the roles and responsibilities, and we don't have a rotational person. It's just one person who we can train and return and retain. So either one is probably okay on that front. I defer to you all.
So there's two elements. One is, I think just having one company, one system is probably easiest, but you just said something that sort of raised a red flag, which was, it was almost as if this person needed to be advocating for the WeWa, almost as if that person would be in conflict with the company we've retained. Is that the case? I'm just trying to.
Well, it's when you have a vendor, there's just natural tension to get time and attention for your facility to make sure you're prioritized for scheduling. Like there is still a shortage of lifeguards. We were fortunate enough that we have 2 guards and a checker who live here who are very committed to the WeWa. But even last week, there was a scheduling issue. Sunday, middle of the day, lifeguards couldn't get in touch with the company. I have to call the owner, get upset with him. Lifeguard is able to come down in 1 hour, and only 25 members can swim during that time. So
So what we need is, okay, so it sounds like, I think you said it, a manager. I would suggest that the easiest way to do this is through the company. You expand their project and just be very clear about the role and responsibility of this individual. That seems like the easiest. I don't think it's going to happen this season. I mean, maybe we could have a trial period for the last month or something after conversations with the management company, but it seems like this is just something we need to fix for next year.
Look, I'm there a lot, okay? Not in the supervisory role. I don't tell anybody what to do. I've delegated that to you and your committee, and you're doing a great job. But somehow I just get the sense that Arch Pools, the contractor, is not as responsive as we'd like them to be. I go down there on one day, there's no checker, even though it's a Friday. The lifeguards are, instead of watching the water, are talking to their friends. There are problems on the beachfront, and we've gotten letters from concerned parents. You and I have both gotten these letters that things are not operating as well as they should. There are problems. And having reached that conclusion, isn't it better for us to get someone who's not a company employee, who has to advocate? And maybe we'll get a different vendor next year. We tried this year. Matt sent out 6 RFPs and only the same company responded. Are we really happy with these people and the way they run the beach? Because they seem to be the management seems to be mostly hands off. And you've got to take on all these responsibilities that you shouldn't have to take on. So I don't know if hiring through them someone who becomes their employee is going to greatly improve the situation and the safety of the beach.
So my only question, Mayor, is so everything you said makes sense to me. My only question is, who is this individual? Is it that's I mean, that's what it comes.
I have a response to you.
Yeah.
When the WeWa Beach Club was operating the beach, there was a school teacher who was available all summer by the name of Paloma Heckel. And she was responsible for watching the young checkers and the lifeguards and making sure that things ran properly. Now, I reached out to her this year only to find out that this summer she decided to travel in Europe with her family. It wasn't available.
Right.
But she has the experience, and I'm perfectly happy to go back to her and say, Paloma, would you like to work for us next summer and run the beach?
Yeah. Yeah, no, listen, a teacher's a really interesting idea. You know, someone
that I don't know Paloma, but that makes sense. That type of person who's
that type of person. I completely agree. So if we plan ahead, then if it's not Paloma, maybe we can find someone else.
Right. So I think that's what we aim for next year. Even if we use the same contractor, to have somebody who's answerable to you, Matt, if you decide to take on this challenge next year, as an employee of the village, it will work better than someone that they throw at us who's got a boss down in New Jersey, wherever the office is. I went there once. So would you agree that that's the way we should approach next year?
That makes sense.
That sounds great.
Can you live with that?
Yeah, that sounds great.
Okay. All right.
And everyone on the committee will be very, very happy.
You guys did a great job this year. You're doing a great job, and we appreciate it, and I certainly appreciate it.
Thank you.
Working very hard on this, and you've been all of you, all the members of the committee have done a great job. And everyone, by the way, should come to Touch a Truck on Sunday, right? Matt, you want to do a plug for your event?
Sorry, I just had someone come to my office. Yeah, we have two events this weekend. I may get the times messed up, but we have Stuart McGregor is doing a book signing and a historical walking tour with some photos, some pretty cool old photos of the WeWa, and he'll kind of go around to a few points and give a bit of a background and history there. We'll have refreshments there, and that'll be a great event on Saturday afternoon. I think it's at 4:30. And then on Sunday afternoon, we have Touch a Truck, which is a kids event. And we will have all kinds of ambulance, excavators, police, fire trucks, all kinds of fun things for kids to climb on and learn about in the afternoon there.
And let me make it clear, the notice, the announcements seem to indicate it's only for WeWa Beach Club members, but it's open to residents of the park as well. Isn't that true?
So, Chrissy actually asked me about that. I was not entirely sure what ability we have to open events up or not. So far, all the things that we've been talking about have been for WeWa members, partially because we're trying to incentivize people to join the club for these events, and partially because we're just a committee that doesn't have ability to invite either residents or outside guests to the park.
Well, I had on a June 6th, June 5th email in response to Chrissy said that all residents and their children should be allowed to attend. If in fact you're asked about it, unless someone on the board here has a real objection to excluding residents who are not members of the beach club to this Touch a Truck, anybody?
No. I don't know. I mean, since I see Matt's point, wanting to encourage people to join, as opposed to.
As a general update, we have 101 village residents who are members and 54 Hamlet members.
That's terrific.
That's great. Josh, do you have an opinion on whether we should open the event to all village residents? This children's event, Touch a Truck?
I mean, listen, I would defer to Matt. If it's a membership drive opportunity, then I would say why not, but defer to Matt on that and the committee.
So on one hand, we want people to join. This is a kids event, so it's always better to be more inclusive for kids. I think also we are having various first responders volunteer time and the use of their equipment. So that's, those in theory are owned by all taxpayers. So
Okay. So open it to all residents, plus the Hamlet members of the WeWa.
Yep.
Okay, don't turn anybody away that's eligible. That's the best way to handle it. Thanks, Matt. Anything else?
That's it for me. Thanks,
Okay.
everyone.
What's the who's gonna open up the account for you? Will that be Elizabeth? Elizabeth can handle that. Elizabeth, can you open up a separate?
It's not an account, it's just another budget item.
It's gonna be a separate checking account.
Mayor, this is Jared, if I may, I'm gonna look into the comptroller's reports on that. I just sent an email to Brian Stolar, I copied you. I don't think it's an issue. I think the village can open a proprietary account with the same bank. But before Elizabeth takes any steps, just let me confirm that, please.
Sure. Okay. So we'll wait to hear from you on that. Thanks, Jared. Okay, we move on to audit of claims.
Yes, so the audit of claims for the general fund were $79,804.22. For the sewer fund, $18,940.98. For the professional fees, $6,068. And for the water fund, $21,895.31.
Any questions to Elizabeth on the audit of claims? Okay, Budget transfers as listed in a manner recommended by trustee Shaw.
Yeah.
Yep.
good with that.
Are you good with it?
Yep.
She's good with it. Anybody else?
Yep. Yeah, I looked at it, fine.
Trustee Scherer?
Oh, the only question I had was the 30,000 from the QuickBook Consultants. That there was a transfer. I just wanted to see, when do we actually pay 4-lane? Was it this fiscal year or last fiscal year?
I think that was last fiscal year.
I tried to, I know we've had this conversation before. That's my only question, and just to take a look and when we actually paid it. Because I thought last year we budgeted 20,000 and we didn't use it. And for last fiscal year.
Yeah, I thought that was done before this fiscal year. I thought it was over.
That's all I want to double check.
Right.
I
You know,
know-
we haven't got, we're done with them. We're not getting any more bills from them.
No, I know that, but I'm just wondering that we actually had 30,000 available this year, this fiscal year. That's my question.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't, nothing came out of that budget line this year.
Right. Anyway, that's my thing,
Okay.
my concern, and I want to just look and see what we actually paid them last year.
Okay. You're welcome to tomorrow if you like.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
okay. All right, anybody else on budget transfers? No, no.
But
Okay.
so we're okay with the budget transfers? We'll just go into that tomorrow, Tinka? Is that what I'm
Yeah,
getting?
I'm okay with everything except for that
Okay.
4-lane that I had a question of,
Okay.
that we.
All right, we're getting close to the end, ladies and gentlemen. And now we have what's called closing comments. Are there any members of the public still here who would like to speak about Chairman Reichgott?
That sounds weird. I'll come up here. While I'm sorry that I'm gonna lose my storage unit, I have some experience in there, and if you're gonna make that into finished space, you've gotta do something about the water that's coming in through the foundation. And the reason it's coming through the foundation is because it's a 130-year-old building or whatever and doesn't have any waterproofing. And the floor of that unit and the floor of the rest of Village Hall is several feet below grade at the bottom of a hill. So whatever you're gonna do, if you're really turning into finished space, you're probably gonna need to excavate back there, waterproof it, and put in a footing drain.
We did talk about that a little bit and about
We had
having,
some preliminary discussions on how to accomplish that. I made at least Michelle aware of it, so we know.
Yes, good. And then the only other thing, just apropos of the WeWa. Forever, the WeWa was the WeWa Beach Club that sort of borrowed the beach, right? The committee's doing a great job. The village has to decide if this is gonna be a village service, run like every other village service, or if it's gonna continue to be some sort of separate item. And that's gotta inform the way that it gets funded and run.
So what you're saying is this is just a taxpayer item as trustee Brooks suggested, and every resident can join and.
If you're asking my opinion, I think that for the amount, if you look at what the membership fee is versus what every tax bill is, if that got rolled into your taxes and you're automatically a member, most people probably wouldn't notice. And that's a huge, there's a lot more budget there. In fact, you could probably make that fee lower for everyone. There would be real questions about what happens with, historic Hamlet members. I don't even want to open that box. But if it's an amenity of the village and it's in everybody's real estate listing and, then let's make it an amenity of village and run it that way.
Thanks for your suggestion.
Okay,
We'll mull that one over.
That's not a today project.
Anybody else, any members of the public on Zoom, have any comments they'd like to make? Okay, seeing none, any comments from the trustees, starting with the deputy mayor, follow-up comments? Trustee Shaw? Trustee Scherer, any follow-up comments? Okay. All right, now, for the purpose of entering executive session, I make a motion that the Board of Trustees leave the public meeting and enter executive session at 9:50 PM to discuss civil service and personnel matters. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous?
Aye.
Okay. So members of the public, you are excused. You're welcome to come back once we exit executive session.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Okay. Done.
What,
Who
is
did
he
that?
doing that
Who-
remotely?
I did that, sorry.
What? Okay, all right. Yeah, why don't you grab him?
So I have a question, I guess. Can I
Yeah.
raise it now?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, Jared, it was brought up in public comment that it's required by law. If I understood it correctly, the question or the comment, it's required by law to post minutes on the website? Isn't the website sort of an optional service that municipalities
believe
provide?
I believe your interpretation is correct, Deputy Mayor. I'll confirm that. I wanted, as the comment was being made, I was perusing the village's website and I noticed that all of the minutes are there and the agenda is there, for a prior meeting.
Oh, that's why, okay.
All right, continue, Jared, back on the record.
Okay, and I haven't said anything since it stopped and picked up again. And I noticed that the agenda and the backup materials, if you will, were all posted if you look at the village's calendar. But I will confirm that, Deputy Mayor, and report back before the next meeting.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Okay, one other item that we are in general session. I received a phone call from a resident who wants to have a party, a pre-wedding party on September 14th at the Weewa for about 50 guests prior to the wedding, which will take place at the Tuxedo Club. And Matt sent that request to me, and I am asking the board, do we have any issue with a private party after the Weewa Beach season closes that a resident wants to have at the Weewa? About 50 guests with the promise that they would clean up after themselves, carry in, carry out. They're going to hire somebody to clean up. And the party will be, she described them as children, but there's actually, her daughter's in her mid-30s, and it's her daughter and her daughter's friends. And they're going to play cornhole. I don't know if you know what that is, and other games. And she's not requesting that the park be closed to residents that Saturday, but they want to use a portion of it. So any discussion on that particular point with respect to this request?
I don't know how that works.
It's after
Having
the
a pri-
season?
No, but
Yeah.
having a private party on village property.
Yeah.
With insurance and stuff, that
Yeah, the
would be a
insurance.
question for Jared.
What do you think, Jared?
Is there I was just looking at the code. Is there a permit process for those kinds of events?
I don't believe we have a permit process in place for those.
I mean, if they were just informally gathering during normal hours and it was they were just using the park as like anyone else would, unless there was some permit application process, I don't know that would prevent them. I understand the insurance component, especially if it's children around a lake.
Not children, they're all in their mid-30s.
Okay.
Yeah, they're adults. They're going to be wedding guests. The wedding will take place later in the afternoon at Tuxedo Park. Tuxedo Club. I know that we've had past events there. There's is it Midsummer? Is that
But that was during the season, right?
Yeah,
The
it was a
Swedish-
midsummer celebration. Did
yeah.
the people who had that, did they have to pay any money to the village or get permission from do you know that, whether they had to get permission from the committee? Yeah.
I'm almost wondering, like, in the town, we had, for the parks, we had several parks.
Mhm.
Okay, and if anybody wants to have a private party, they have to go through the permit, has to be
Yeah.
approved by the board of trustees.
Like a public
And-
assembly permit.
Yes, and insurance and a deposit for, cleanup and
All right.
rules and regs.
So,
Can I just say something too? I don't know if this is irrelevant or not, but I mean, people have birthday parties there all the time, and I realize a wedding's bigger, but it's still a gathering, a private gathering, so. Wouldn't
Well,
it
what
be
do you
the same sort of thing?
what do you
Should be
recommend?
the same.
Sorry, Josh, what?
No, I was just saying, I mean, Elizabeth, I was answering Elizabeth's question that it should be the same. I mean, we should have a process for this. There should be a permitting process. I mean, we have liability anytime anyone's having parties on our property, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
All right, well, Jared, would you agree with that, that we should institute a permitting process for,
It's not uncommon for villages to have, public assembly permitting requirements. So I'm glad to look into it and see what other villages have used and
Okay,
get you that.
I mean, Mayor, I think what you can say to these people is, yes, but we just need to put the system in place, right? I mean, we're
hate
not
to-
against.
Yeah, I don't want to say yes, but we're gonna put a system in place. That's not what you say to a resident. It's one thing to say, yes, we have a system in place and you'll have to follow it. Not, we're putting a system in place because of your request. That's not going to evoke the kind of response we want from someone. So I'll come up with something other than that, but we'll listen to what Jared recommends, and at the next meeting, we'll put some system in place. Are you agreeable to that, Josh?
Sure. I just didn't know what your concerns were. I was trying to send a nice message to the people that yes, we're going to allow them to have their party, but that however you want to word it, I don't really care.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Anybody have anything else? Okay. Yeah.
I have one issue.
Sure.
And I think I briefly explained this to you. Richard DeZena of 3 Acoma Road, he submitted a Cold War Veterans Exemption application to me back in October, which I overlooked in February when we were going through the assessments. By law, we have to collect what's on the tax warrant as far as his tax bill, and I've advised him of that. But in light of the fact that he did submit the application on time and we were delinquent in formally giving him what he was due, I'd like to submit a voucher. Mr. DeZena qualifies for a reduction in his assessment of $1,855. And when you multiply that by the tax rate, he gets a credit of $100.22. So if I could ask the board to sign off on that, I do have all the correspondence in there from Mr. DeZena, the calculation, and his application, so it's clear to whoever looks at this in the future. And he was advised that we need payment by July 1st, and he may get the reimbursement before he has to pay.
You do this for a fire department, right?
Yes, that was all captured before the tax bills went out, yes.
Where do I sign? I usually don't sign.
On any of those lines on the.
Just underneath.
Okay.
There and there.
Thank you.
Okay, because no one else is here. Yeah, you need 3 signatures. Thank you. Didn't occur to me. Okay. Think that
Oh
went
my
through.
goodness, what am I doing?
And
Of course, we
if
did it
you-
backwards, but that's okay.
If you, also Mark and Michelle, if you guys want to just sign off.
Oh.
I've gone
I-
through all of them.
I signed this one.
Okay, so. then you have-
The top one covers this whole pile,
Yeah,
right?
I'll be
Okay.
back
this one
tomorrow
covers
morning.
That pile and that.
Are we done?
Yeah, we're gonna do a
Wanna
motion.
get that
Yeah.
done?
Yep, I can get this
Okay.
done.
I'm, all right, I move that we adjourn this meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Time is, after 10 o'clock. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you all very much. We're
Good
done.
evening.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. I'll see you tomorrow, Elizabeth. Okay.
Okay, well, I'll see you guys tomorrow, hopefully. I'm gonna go check in that 4-lane thing.
Okay,
See what
good.
that is.
All right.
Now, let me just make sure, oh, okay, this goes with this.